Chapter 1266. Lin Feng stopped in midair. He felt as if his internal organs were burning. Clearly, Lin Feng had suffered serious injuries from the previous clash. Lin Feng finally understood how powerful a fourth-layer rebirth realm cultivator was. Previously, he had launched a sneak attack on Ziqian Dao, which was why he was able to send Ziqian Dao flying. However, when the two of them clashed, the gap between them became apparent. After all, Lin Feng was only at the first layer of the life and death realm. There was a difference of one major realm and 13 minor realms between him and Ziqian Dao, changing your appearance and deceiving everyone. What a powerful disguise technique. So, this is your true appearance. Who are you? Ziqian Dao coldly looked at Lin Feng. Ziqian Dao had been injured by Lin Feng's sneak attack, so he hated Lin Feng to the core. However, he decided to play with Lin Feng slowly. It was like a cat playing with a mouse. The cat did not kill the mouse directly. Instead, it played with the mouse until the mouse died. That was Ziqian Dao's plan. He wanted to play with Lin Feng slowly until he died. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and said, "Didn't you want to use the fire Qilin to lure me out?" Ziqian Dao's eyes were wide open, and he burst into laughter. "So you're Lin Feng. You can wear out iron shoes in a fruitless search, but you don't want to look for me. Little boy, should I say that you're a good friend? Or should I say that you're stupid? You knew that this was a sure-death situation, yet you still barged in." Lin Feng said, "It's still unknown who will emerge victorious. Isn't it too early to be proud? Could it be that you think you can overturn the heavens in front of me?" Ziqian Dao sneered as he walked towards Lin Feng. "In the battle with the heavenly teachers, we killed 7 of their descendants. The names of our ancestors who killed them were recorded in the sacred canon of our earth teachers. Even after billions of years, our descendants still respect and worship them. Today, I'll kill you. My name will be recorded in the sacred canon, forever remembered by future generations." Boom. After saying that, Ziqian Dao raised his right hand and condensed a huge palm that covered the sky and grabbed at Lin Feng. 8 worlds. 8 small worlds appeared under Lin Feng's feet, and he moved through them. When the gigantic hand blotted out the sky and blotted out the sun, it was destroyed by one of the small worlds. The octagonal world has long since been taken away by us Geomasters. You obtained the octagonal world after killing Zidong on the Pillar of Blessings, right? Ziqian Dao said indifferently. Yes. Lin Feng nodded. He used the 8 directional worlds as fast as he could. Lin Feng was getting closer and closer to Ziqian. In terms of magic power, Lin Feng couldn't compare to Ziqian Dao. However, Lin Feng had his own advantages. He had a powerful physical body. Lin Feng's physical body could kill a real dragon. That wasn't a joke. Lin Feng's physical body could really kill a real dragon. When fighting, he could play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses. He could often catch his opponent off guard. "I've heard that your physical body is terrifying. Do you want to fight against my physical body? Do you think you can get close to me?" Ziqian Dao's lips curled into a disdainful smile when he saw Lin Feng rushing toward him. He clearly knew that Lin Feng's physical body was extremely powerful. However, Ziqian Dao didn't intend to give Lin Feng a chance to fight him in close combat. Purple Heaven Dao had also cultivated the world of 8 directions. He also executed this supreme sacred art as his body retreated continuously. Then, Ziqian Dao continued to attack Lin Feng. Void travel. While Ziqian Dao was attacking, Lin Feng used another unique ability. Void travel was an ability given to Lin Feng by the golden-winged Rock King's clone. It allowed him to travel a short distance Instantly, Lin Feng used the empty space world and the 8 directional worlds together. The two abilities switched quickly. He traveled through the void and arrived in front of Ziqian Dao. Then, he threw a punch at Ziqian Dao. Ziqian Dao clearly didn't expect Lin Feng to have such an ability. The Great Void Technique. No, this isn't the Great Void Technique. It's very similar to it. Ziqian Dao was a rebirth realm expert and had seen many things. He instantly realized that Lin Feng's ability was different from the Great Void Technique. He also realized how powerful this ability was. His reaction was extremely fast. When Lin Feng's punch came, Ziqian Dao had already attacked with his palm. This was a common move in martial arts. It was called the axe chop. His arm was like the handle of an axe, and his palm was like the head of an axe. The chop came down forcefully. In close combat, because the attacks were too fast, divine abilities couldn't be used at all. It was completely a collision of flesh against flesh. Of course, if one knew some exquisite martial arts techniques, they would be able to break through force with skill. It was like using 4 ounces to defeat 1,000 caddies. But obviously, it was extremely unrealistic to use exquisite martial arts techniques to suppress Lin Feng in close combat with Lin Feng. Lin Feng knew where his advantage was, so he was very familiar with many martial arts techniques. Lin Feng was still using the same technique. His attack didn't decrease. Bang! Then, the two of them fiercely collided. Lin Feng's body was too strong. He directly broke through Ziqian Dao's axe chop and then punched Ziqian Dao's shoulder. Crack! Ziqian Dao's shoulder bones were broken by Lin Feng. Ziqian Dao couldn't help but let out a painful groan. Lin Feng quickly rushed forward and used a mountain quaking fist to smash Ziqian Dao. This mountain quaking fist was the most powerful martial arts technique. It was violent and domineering. Lin Feng was like a dragon that came out of the abyss. Death substitution technique. Just as Lin Feng's attack was about to hit Ziqian Dao used a powerful technique. Divine light flowed in his body. When Lin Feng's attack landed on his body exploded. However, there was no blood. It was just an illusion. Oh no! Lin Feng's face suddenly changed. He quickly retreated. At this moment, Ziqian Dao appeared 100 meters above Lin Feng. He used the Divine Mountain Demon Seal, condensing a Divine Mountain shadow, and suppressed Lin Feng. Lin Feng couldn't dodge. He raised his fist to block the attack. He wanted to destroy the Divine Mountain shadow, but he couldn't. The Divine Mountain shadow dissolved his attack, and then suppressed Lin Feng in the air, making it difficult for him to move. That death substitution technique was passed down by the Sage faction. I used it to dodge the attack of the Sage faction's disciple. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens. You are destined to die in my hands today. Ziqian Dao stepped forward, and a sword chi slashed out. The sword chi shot towards Lin Feng's head. Ziqian Dao wanted to kill Lin Feng directly. Chapter 12:67. The sword chi shattered the heavens and earth as it slashed towards Lin Feng. The power of this attack was truly terrifying. If it really hit him, Lin Feng would definitely be separated from his body. Facing this dangerous attack, Lin Feng activated the Archean Dragonesque Elephant skill. Finally, his body was able to move under the suppression of the Sacred Mountain shadow. Then, Lin Feng used the Great Defense technique. This Great Defense technique formed a dense array of runes that surrounded Lin Feng's body, protecting Lin Feng within. Clang! When Purple Sky Dao's sword chi slashed towards Lin Feng, it instantly collided with the Great Defense technique's defensive runes. Although the sword chi was powerful, it was still unable to break through the Great Defense technique. After using the Great Defense technique to block the sword chi's attack, Lin Feng immediately used the sky-dominating lightning technique. This tyrannical attack formed a huge lightning ball. The ball of lightning instantly exploded. Waves of tyrannical shock waves crashed onto the sacred mountain shadow, causing it to explode. Lin Feng was finally able to break free. Kid, you do have some skills. But if that's all you have, it's far from enough. Purple Sky Dao's expression was indifferent as he stepped forward. The dermic powers in his body began to circulate, emitting a sound that resembled the beating of war drums. Lin Feng once again used the 8 directional worlds and the void traversal technique, hoping to get close to Purple Sky Dao for the second time. But this time, Lin Feng failed. Purple Sky Dao was already on guard, so it was almost impossible for him to get close to Purple Sky Dao. As for the Purple Heaven Dao, he had condensed the Great Abyss Slaying Sword Art. This was a formidable mystic skill. Within the void, a gigantic black dragon appeared. This was the Abyss Dragon, also known as the Death Dragon. It was rumored to be the mount of the Death God. Roar, the underworld dragon, let out a resonant dragon roar before charging towards Lin Feng with its massive body. When the Nether Dragon arrived beside Lin Feng, it turned into a 300-meter-long sword ray and slashed at Lin Feng. Suddenly, Lin Feng had a feeling that he could not dodge, as if no matter what kind of move he used, he would not be able to dodge the attack of the Great Slaying Dragon Sword technique. The power of this sword technique was truly formidable. The creatures in the underworld need to drink the water of the endless river of death. The birth of all living things cannot be separated from the nourishment of the original water of the world. I am the representative of the Tao of death. I control the power of death. Lin Feng stepped forward in the void. Ancient, complex, and incomprehensible divine language resounded throughout the world. A loud, rumbling sound could be heard. A long river swept through the world. This long river, it was the river of death. When the river of death descended, it completely suppressed the abyss-slaying dragon sword art. The huge sword ray turned back into the underworld dragon, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws in the air. Return to the river of death. That is where you belong, said Lin Feng, walking above the river of death. His voice sounded faintly discernible. It was as if he was the Lord of Hell, standing in the depths of hell and looking up at the heavens. The underworld dragon let out a loud dragon roar as its massive body charged into the river of death. The underworld dragon became a part of the river of death, following it as it charged towards Purple Sky Dao. The Great Death Technique? You've even learned such a powerful Great Dao. Purple Sky Dao stood in the air, narrowing his eyes as he looked at Lin Feng. He was extremely shocked. Then he became excited. I've long heard that you've cultivated many powerful Great Daos. The rumors are actually true. Just one Great Dao is already heaven-defying. You're actually able to cultivate so many Great Daos. You're really lucky. However, these Great Daos that you've cultivated are destined to become someone else's. In the end, these Great Daos will belong to me. Today, I'll let you know that in the face of absolute power, all resistance is like an ant trying to shake a tree. Zi Qiandao let out a long howl, and his body became illusory, divine Emperor Sky shattering fist. It was hazy, endless divine, light, lingered at that moment. Purple Sky Dao seemed to have transformed into an immortal divine emperor. He was powerful and ancient. He controlled the life and death of countless living beings. Purple Sky Dao's fist swept over, and the river of death began to crumble. Purple Sky Dao's cultivation level was too high. No matter how heaven-defying Lin Feng was, he was still a whole realm lower than Purple Sky Dao. There were 13 minor realms between them. He was indeed suppressed everywhere. When the river of death collapsed, Lin Feng had no choice but to quickly retreat. However, Purple Sky Dao had already rushed over with the 8 directional worlds. I'm using the inheritance of the Divine Masters to deal with you, the successor of the Divine Masters. This is really exciting. What do you think about dying under the great Daos of your Divine Masters? Purple Sky Dao's face was filled with a sinister expression. Clearly, both the 8 directional worlds and the Divine Emperor Sky-Shattering Fist were the ultimate techniques of the Divine Masters. Lin Feng's expression was gloomy. He didn't say anything. The situation was very dangerous, and he couldn't afford to be distracted. Lin Feng's left hand condensed a great defensive technique, while his right hand condensed an 8 trigrams diagram. He was defending and attacking at the same time. Multitasking. What a powerful ability. Before this, I've only heard of multitasking, but today I've actually seen this ability. Amazing, truly amazing. Purple Sky Dao's face was filled with shock, but then he laughed coldly. So, what if you're multitasking? The difference in strength is too great. I can break any great Daos. Asterisk bang. Asterisk Purple Sky Dao's fist had already arrived. Lin Feng's 2 great Daos were instantly destroyed by Purple Sky Dao's fist. Then, Purple Sky Dao's fist landed on Lin Feng's chest. Crack, crack! Lin Feng's sternum broke, and he was sent flying. His face was pale. Ha ha ha, you're too weak. I'll destroy your physical body first. Then search your soul and find out your secrets. Ziqian Dao laughed coldly. He took a step forward and threw out another punch. This punch made Lin Feng feel a thick qi of death. If this punch landed on him, Lin Feng knew that his physical body would be completely destroyed. What awaited him was only the fate of death. The most shocking thing was that Lin Feng realized that his body had been sealed by Z Sky Dao's punch. There's no need to struggle anymore. You're dead. Purple Sky Dao looked indifferent. That terrifying attack came down on Lin Feng. Mend the Heavens technique. Lin Feng used one of his most powerful skills. The Mend the Heavens technique could make up for mistakes and give him a chance to be reborn. Lin Feng's Mend the Heavens technique hadn't reached the level where he could turn back time, but he had reached the level where he could make up for mistakes. After using the Mend the Heavens technique, Lin Feng's body moved half a centimeter to the left. That half a centimeter caused the punch that was supposed to kill Lin Feng to miss. Lin Feng directly grabbed Z Sky Dao's arm and shouted, "Buffed." Then, Z Sky Dao's right arm was torn off by Lin Feng. Ah! Z Sky Dao screamed. His left hand struck Lin Feng's right chest. Lin Feng's chest was pierced through and blood gushed out of it. Lin Feng's chest was pierced through. Chapter 1268. Both of them were injured. Lin Feng quickly moved back. He was severely injured, even more so than Zigan Dao, who had lost an arm. My arm! My arm! You bastard, you actually tore off my arm. You'll die a horrible death. Ziqian Dao had gone completely mad. He roared furiously and cursed. His eyes were filled with endless hatred and murderous intent. There was a saying, if the heavenly Dao is flawed, it will be difficult to advance. If a person's body was perfectly preserved and their limbs were intact, it would be considered a perfect heavenly Dao. Ziqian Dao's limbs were badly damaged after his arm was torn off. This was the so-called heavenly Dao being flawed. If he wanted to cultivate in the future, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Because he knew this, Ziqian Dao hated Lin Feng to the core. The heaven patching technique is really powerful, but because it's so powerful, it has a fatal flaw. After using it once, it can't be used a second time within 3 days. Lin Feng felt that it was a pity. If the heaven patching technique didn't have this restriction, He believed that he could definitely kill Zi Qiandao with the heaven patching technique. Facing Zi Qiandao's hysterical roar, Lin Feng didn't say anything. Instead, he silently activated his immortal body and quickly recovered from his injuries. Zi Qiandao was furious when he saw this scene. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Both of them were severely injured, but Lin Feng recovered in the blink of an eye. How could Zi Qiandao not be depressed? Good. Very good. Today, I will definitely tear you into pieces. Zi Qiandao looked at Lin Feng with hatred. Lin Feng looked indifferent. Then let's fight to the death. Let's see who will survive in the end. Zi Qiandao took out a porcelain bottle and poured out a black pill from it. He then swallowed it. Soon after, Zi Qiandao's aura became stronger and stronger. Originally, Zi Qiandao's fighting strength had decreased sharply because of his broken arm. However, after taking the pill, Zi Qiandao's cultivation had increased tremendously once again. He was even stronger than before he lost his arm. Berserk Demon Pill, a holy level pill. It's made from 100,000-year-old holy level pill, and it's made from 3,762 different kinds of spiritual medicines. It takes 49 days to concoct. Taking one pill will reduce your lifespan by 3,000 years, but your cultivation will double. Lin Feng frowned slightly. Little animal, you have good taste. Indeed, that's the Berserk Demon Pill. I've kept it for over 1,000 years. I didn't use it when I was in danger, but today I have no choice but to use it. You little animal, you're making me feel dangerous. I'm going to kill you at all costs. Zi Gondao shouted coldly. Then, he quickly charged towards Lin Feng. Great Sun God Subduing Palm. Zi Gondao shouted coldly. He stretched out his right hand and slapped towards Lin Feng. A great sun condensed above his palm. The great sun turned slightly. It was as if the real nine heavens divine sun had descended. This palm was imbued with the might of the sun. Its power was truly terrifying to the extreme. Lin Feng jumped up in the void and turned into an 8 trigrams diagram. 3 qian chains, 6 kuan breaks, zhenyang bowl, Gen cover bowl, Li Zhong Su, Kenzhong full, Dui upper deficiency, Sun lower break. The 8 trigrams diagram of heaven and earth condensed into a Dao diagram. It spun violently in the void and attacked Zi Gondao. Break. Zi Gondao jumped up like a madman. He attacked the 8 trigrams diagram that Lin Feng had turned into. This Berserk Demon Pill could not only increase the user's fighting strength, but it could also make the user crazy. The crazier the person, the more fearless they would be when fighting. Just like how Zi Gondao was now. His face was distorted, and he was no different from a madman. After 36 consecutive attacks, Lin Feng was beaten back to his original state by Zi Gondao. He was punched in the left side of his chest by Zi Gondao. Lin Feng's left chest instantly caved in, and his body flew out. If that punch had moved down half a centimeter, it would have hit Lin Feng's heart. His heart would have been shattered by that punch. Fortunately, Lin Feng narrowly avoided the fatal blow. But at this moment, Zi Gondao was too terrifying. Lin Feng quickly retreated, wanting to distance himself from Zi Gondao. But at this moment, Zi Gondao had already charged over and punched Lin Feng again. Lin Feng used Iron Chain River to block Zi Gondao's attack. He was hit. Crack! His arm was broken. His body was sent flying. Lin Feng did not know how many battles he had experienced, but this was the first time he had been suppressed like this. His body was constantly injured. He used the void travel technique and finally got rid of Zi Gondao. Then, Lin Feng used his immortal divine body, and his injuries quickly healed. Kid, this body of yours can't be used without limit. Every time you use it, your body will be greatly damaged and your fighting strength will greatly decrease. Zhigan Dao was very scary. He had already discovered the flaws of the immortal divine body. Any kind of physique would have its flaws. Naturally, the immortal divine body had its flaws too. No physique was perfect. Lin Feng looked indifferent. Before my fighting strength completely disappears, I can definitely kill you. Shameless boasting. Zhigan Dao was disdainful and attacked again. Martial spirit fusion. Lin Feng used his 5 devouring martial spirits. The 5 devouring martial spirits instantly merged into one, and a huge black hole appeared behind Lin Feng. I stand in the black hole and look at my ancestors. Lin Feng murmured. In a daze, Lin Feng saw the ancestors of the Sovereign Emperor clan in the depths of the black hole. They were looking at him. A black chi condensed and formed. It seemed to be able to crush the void and directly suppressed Zhigan Dao. Humph! Zhigan Dao sneered and punched the black chi. He thought that he could easily destroy the black chi that was pressing down on him. However, when he collided with the black chi, Zhigan Dao was immediately swept away. Wah! It was as if he had been struck by lightning. He spat out mouthfuls of blood, and his body split open. His entire body was dyed red with blood. Zhigan Dao was severely injured. At this moment, he finally understood how terrifying Lin Feng's technique was. Life combustion. Shouted Zhigan Dao. He was going all out. He instantly burned 3,000 years of his life. Previously, Candio had already burned 3,000 years of his lifespan after consuming the Berserk demonic pill. Now he was burning another 3,000 years of his lifespan because the effects of the Berserk demonic pill had not disappeared. Candio could continue burning his lifespan to release more of the Berserk demonic pill's medicinal effects and increase his combat strength. Zhigan Dao went crazy. He punched the black chi again and again. He managed to block the black chi's attacks. You won't be able to last long against such an incredible technique. Once you break it, you'll die. Zhigan Dao laughed ferociously. Zhigan Dao had burned 6,000 years of his life to increase his fighting strength. He was too strong. The black chi was being suppressed by him. It even started to crack. Zhigan Dao's face was distorted. He wanted to destroy the black chi and kill Lin Feng. However, at that moment, the space behind Zhigan Dao trembled slightly. The fire Qilin silently appeared. It waved its claws and attacked Zhigan Dao. Flame Saint, you can still fight after receiving a quasi-great emperor weapons attack. Zhigan Dao was horrified. He wanted to dodge the fire Qilin's attack, but it was too late. The fire Qilin's attack landed on Zhigan Dao's body. Half of Zhigan Dao's body exploded and blood spurted out. At that moment, Lin Feng's black chi moved towards Zhigan Dao. Bang! Zhigan Dao's body exploded into a mist of blood. He was killed on the spot. Lin Feng and the fire Qilin couldn't hold on any longer. They fell from the sky. Clang! Clang! Lin Feng and the fire unicorn crashed onto the ground. Lin Feng and the fire unicorn crashed to the ground. Chapter 1269. Fire Qilin, are you all right? Lin Feng lay on the ground, gasping for breath. He turned to look at the fire Qilin. Hee, I'm not dead yet. The fire Qilin grinned. I didn't think that you would actually be able to kill Purple Sky Path. You're only at the first layer of the life and death realm, yet you were able to fight against a cultivator at the 4th layer of the rebirth realm for such a long time. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. I also used all my cards. If you and I hadn't worked together, I definitely wouldn't have been able to turn the tables. Purple Sky Path is too terrifying. Fortunately, we've dealt with him. It won't be easy for the others to enter the Qilin Mountain. After a pause, Lin Feng continued, "How are you feeling now? I need to recuperate. Since you're here, you can also enter the sacred pond to cultivate. For a while." The fire Qilin said, "Sacred pond? What is that place?" Lin Feng asked curiously. "The holy pond is where the fire unicorns were born. That place is filled with godly flames. That kind of godly flames can strengthen the physical body. Of course, the most important thing is that they can strengthen the soul." The fire Qilin said. Lin Feng nodded. Then he and the fire Qilin began to recover. Lin Feng recovered relatively quickly. He was back to normal in 2 hours. As for the fire Qilin, its recovery was slower because of its injuries. It needed time to heal the injury to its origin. After resting for more than 2 hours, the fire Qilin was able to move. Lin Feng followed the fire Qilin into the depths of the mountain. Finally, they arrived at a valley in the depths of the Qilin mountain. There was a cave in the valley that was covered with restrictions. The restrictions here were abnormally terrifying. Lin Feng felt his heart skip a beat. This place is covered with one of the 10 great forbidden formations, the underworld god-slaughtering formation. If you trespass, you might even be destroyed, the fire Qilin said. Lin Feng rubbed his chin. "Has this formation been passed down? If it has, let me learn it." The fire Qilin replied, "It's been lost for a long time." After pausing for a moment, the fire Qilin continued. "Perhaps when the fire Qilin race disappeared from the Tianwu continent, this kind of formation was lost in the Tianwu continent. Then how did you appear in the Martial Heaven continent?" Lin Feng looked at the fire Qilin curiously. "I broke through the stone and came out," the fire Qilin said. Lin Feng was shocked. "You were born from a stone? The stone tribe?" The fire Qilin rolled its eyes and said, "Of course not, I'm a fire Qilin, but I was sealed in a stone when I was young. Then I was placed in the Saint Pond. I don't know how much time had passed, but I woke up and broke out of the stone." Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat, and he said, "Do you still remember what happened in the past? Why is it sealed in the stone?" The fire Qilin shook its head. "Back then, I was too young. I don't remember anything." Lin Feng said, "It must have been the elders of your race who sealed you in the stone so that you could survive. But why? Could it be that something happened in the past? So in order to let you live, they had no choice but to seal you and then put you in the sacred pond." The fire Qilin said, "It's all a mystery. You don't have any memories of your past in your bloodline?" asked Lin Feng curiously. "It's vague, but it's hard to see clearly. If you want to explore it, now is not the time. Maybe in the future, when you reach the deity realm, you'll find something." The fire Qilin frowned slightly. At this time, Lin Feng and the fire Qilin arrived at the belly of a mountain. There was a huge pool of flames in the middle of the mountain. Obviously, this place was the sacred pond of raging flames. When you cultivate in there, if you're lucky enough, you might gain some enlightenment. There are records of some of the top techniques of the fire Qilin clan, but whether or not you can obtain them depends on your luck. Lin Feng nodded and jumped into the sacred pond. The flames burned fiercely, but they couldn't harm Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng sat down cross-legged and started cultivating. As for the fire Qilin, it quickly left and went to another mountain to heal its injuries. Lin Feng took the lead and guided the flames into his body to refine it. Actually, Lin Feng's body had been refined countless times by the purple earthcore fire and the black earthcore fire. However, different flames had different effects on the body, so using the raging flames of raging flames was still very effective. In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed. During those 10 days, Lin Feng continuously used the raging flames of raging flames to refine his body. Lin Feng's physical body was greatly improved. After reaching his limit, Lin Feng stopped tempering his body. If he overdid it, it would cause serious damage to his body. Lin Feng then tried to use his soul to absorb the heaven and earth blazing divine fire. Flames were supposed to restrain souls. This was because flames belonged to the power of extreme heat and extreme yang. As for soul energy, it belonged to the dark attribute. Therefore, when the two forces collided, the soul would often be injured. However, the heaven and earth raging flames divine fire was a little different. Because the heaven and earth raging flames divine fire had fused with the earth veins extreme yin energy, it could be controlled properly. Not only would the heaven and earth raging divine fire not cause any harm to the soul, but it would also stimulate the soul to grow stronger. When he broke through the life and death realm, Lin Feng's soul power also broke through to the first layer of the rebirth realm. As the level of his soul power increased, then it would be even more difficult to improve. Therefore, any opportunity to increase one's soul power was extremely rare. After bitterly cultivating for more than half a month, Lin Feng's soul power broke through from the first layer of the rebirth realm to the fourth layer of the rebirth realm. In a short period of time, his soul power had broken through 3 layers, which made Lin Feng very happy. Lin Feng felt that his soul power was about to reach its limit, so he stopped cultivating. Next, he tried to comprehend the supreme divine ability passed down by the Fire Qilin clan in the Saint Pond. Unfortunately, Lin Feng failed to comprehend it even after several attempts. This required luck, and it couldn't be forced. Lin Feng came out of seclusion. At this moment, he went to the Fire Qilin's seclusion area. Upon seeing Lin Feng, the Fire Qilin said weakly, "It seems like you've gained quite a bit." Lin Feng nodded. "This Saint Pond is still very useful. How do you feel now?" The Fire Qilin shook its head. "My core was torn apart by the quasi-emperor weapon. It won't be easy for me to recover." The quasi-emperor weapon had already condensed the laws of the heavenly Tao, so the Fire Qilin's core injury was close to a Tao injury. If it couldn't heal, it could very well develop into an even more serious Tao injury. If the Fire Qilin's core injury really became a Tao injury, then the Fire Qilin would most likely die. Lin Feng saw that the Fire Qilin's core injury didn't show any signs of recovery, and he couldn't help but worry for its safety. Chapter 1270. Back then, I also suffered an injury to my origin, but my injury was relatively light. There was only a crack, so it was much easier to recover. In this world, there should be some medicine that can treat such a serious injury to your origin, right? Lin Feng looked at the Fire Qilin and asked. The Fire Qilin said, "Some spirit medicines or pills might be effective for minor injuries to the origin, but my origin is different. My origin was split in the middle, and the origin in my body was almost completely split open. If my origin was completely split open, then it would be a Tao injury, so my origin is close to a Tao injury. Thus, ordinary spirit medicines or pills have no effect on me." The Fire Qilin was an extremely powerful alchemist. It seemed that among the pills that the Fire Qilin had, there were no pills that could treat its origin that was close to a Tao injury. Lin Feng said, "You said that ordinary spirit medicines or pills can't treat it. Are there any heavenly treasures that can have an effect?" "There is an origin Tao fruit that can heal injuries to the origin, but it's not easy to get it," the Fire Qilin said. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. "Where is this origin Tao fruit? I'll go find it." The Fire Qilin said, "I also don't know where the origin Tao fruit is." Lin Feng said, "Wait for me here. I'll go outside and ask around for information about the origin Tao fruit." The Fire Qilin's origin was too injured to move, so Lin Feng couldn't bring it with him. "You be careful." The fire Qilin's voice carried a trace of sadness and farewell. This was because its origin was getting more and more serious, and it could become a Dao injury at any time. Once it became a Dao injury, there was a high probability that it would die. Lin Feng left this time. Who knew if the fire Qilin would ever see him again? Perhaps this parting would be an eternal one. Don't worry, I will bring the origin Dao fruit back. We still have to go to dangerous places to train and soar in the outer realms. Lin Feng then turned and left. After leaving the cave, Lin Feng spent tens of thousands of materials to set up more than 10 killing arrays, connecting them with the restrictions of the Qilin Mountain. This way, Lin Feng could feel a little more at ease. He absolutely could not allow the Geomaster lineage to break the formation again. Once the formation was broken, those great forces would be able to come to the depths of the Qilin Mountain, even if they were unable to break the underworld god-slaughtering formation. However, they could surround the depths of the Qilin Mountain. At that time, even if he found the origin Dao fruit and returned, he wouldn't be able to enter. Lin Feng's absolute killing formation was connected to the Qilin Mountains formation. If more experts from the Geomaster lineage were to arrive, if he wanted to break the formation, he would definitely suffer the attacks of these absolute kill grand formations. Outside, the experts of Song Mingyu and many other major forces were still guarding the Qilin Mountain. They had no intention of leaving. Lin Feng guessed that these people were waiting for the experts of the Geomaster lineage to arrive. The Geomaster lineage had lost a rebirth realm expert this time. How could they let this matter rest? It was unrealistic to force their way out, as the other party had a Boundary Emperor weapon and 11 rebirth realm experts. However, Lin Feng wasn't completely helpless. He still had the Heavenly God elixir, which he could use to activate the 4 vicious cauldrons. Then he would take advantage of the fact that the people outside hadn't reacted yet and rush out. As long as he was a few thousand meters away, Lin Feng would be able to use his speed to his advantage and shake off the group of experts. Thinking of this, Lin Feng didn't hesitate and directly took out the 4 vicious cauldrons. He entered the 4 vicious cauldrons. Then he poured out 5 drops of Heavenly God elixir. After the 5 drops of Heavenly God elixir were absorbed, the 4 vicious cauldrons seemed to come back to life. The Tao Tai, Hundun, Bayan, and Xiongqi appeared and let out deep roars. Whoosh, the 4 vicious cauldrons reached their peak speed and instantly rushed out of the formation, then rushed into the distance. They're out. So it's Lin Feng, that brat. Song Mingyu immediately roared when he saw the 4 vicious cauldrons. He recognized the 4 vicious cauldrons and knew that they were Lin Feng's treasures. Now, he also knew who had dared to provoke Lin Feng. When the others heard that the person from before was Lin Feng, they were shocked. "Stop him!" shouted the strong cultivators of the rebirth cultivation layer. They wanted to stop Lin Feng, but the cauldrons were too strong. Bang, 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 bang. The rebirth realm experts were sent flying by the 4 vicious cauldrons. Song Mingyu directly took out the yin-yang twin swords and slashed at the 4 vicious cauldrons. Clang! The 4 vicious cauldrons were sent flying, but the 4 vicious cauldrons blocked the yin-yang twin swords' attack. Then he tore through the void and disappeared without a trace. He's the only one in the cauldrons, which means that the Fire Saint is still in the Qilin Mountain. If he left in such a hurry, it must mean that the Fire Saint has been severely injured. Therefore, he's going to look for treasures to save the Fire Saint. We'll just wait here and see. "Let's wait here," Fortune Gates Zhang Shenmu said. The other experts also nodded, agreeing with Zhang Shenmu. 10,000 Longevity City Mercenary Association. "Ha! Young master, Are you here to buy information again? What information are you looking for this time? The Mercenary Association's elder was very happy to see Lin Feng. Lin Feng was a very generous person, and Lin Feng had left a deep impression on him. Lin Feng tossed him a pouch of spirit stones. When the elder opened the pouch and saw that it was filled with top-grade spirit stones, his eyes widened and his breathing quickened. He hurriedly put the pouch away and said, "As long as it's something you want to know, the Mercenary Association will definitely help you find out." Lin Feng asked, "Do you know anything about the origin Dao fruit?" The elder replied, "You've asked the right person. I do know something about the origin Dao fruit." Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. "Tell me where it is." The Mercenary Association's elder replied, "I found this information when I was flipping through an ancient book. I can't guarantee whether it's true or not, so if you really look for it and don't find it, you can't blame me." Lin Feng nodded and said, "Of course, I understand." After hearing Lin Feng's guarantee, the Mercenary Association's elder said, "There's an origin Dao fruit in the northwest of the Central Plains, where demons are sealed." Lin Feng frowned slightly. This was the first time he had heard of such a place. He asked, "Where is this origin Dao fruit in the Central Plains? What are its origins?" The Mercenary Association's elder replied, "It's said that it was a battlefield in the ancient times. It's a place where danger lurks everywhere. In the past, there were gods who went there, but they all fell. Entering that place is practically a death sentence." Chapter 1271. The land of sealed demons was famous throughout the central continent. Lin Feng hadn't been in the central continent for long, so he wasn't particularly familiar with the land of sealed demons. It was rumored that during the Great War of Gods and Demons in ancient times, the land of sealed demons was an ancient battlefield. The gods fell, and the demons were sealed. Countless years had passed, and the corpses of the gods had decayed. The sealed demons had also turned into bones. But the land of sealed demons was still terrifying. The broken laws formed after the gods died, and the demons were destroyed, filled the world. Some ancient and terrifying creatures were still alive in that world. Of course, there was no lack of cultivators every year. Even if they knew it was a narrow escape, they still took the risk to enter the land of sealed demons. This was because there were too many opportunities in the land of sealed demons. People died for wealth, birds died for food, and cultivators risked their lives to increase their cultivation. There were far too many people like this. Moreover, some old peerless powerhouses would sometimes appear in the land of sealed demons. They felt that there was no hope for them to break through, so they would enter the land of sealed demons before they died to explore its secrets. They hoped to obtain opportunities and break through. Demon Sealing City was the closest ancient city to the land of sealed demons. People came and went, and it was very lively. Many cultivators came to Demon Sealing City to go to the land of sealed demons. Even if they didn't enter the land of sealed demons, they still wanted to see the majesty and mystery of the land of sealed demons. Lin Feng rode the space-time wormhole and spent an entire month to reach Demon Sealing City. The flying ship to the land of sealed demons will depart in 2 hours. If you want to board, hurry up. If you miss this opportunity, there will be another flying ship in 3 days. A cultivator shouted outside the teleportation plaza. After flying through the space-time wormhole, for a month, Lin Feng was extremely tired. He didn't board the ship. He planned to rest for a few days and wait for the next batch. During these days, Lin Feng also hoped to inquire about the land of sealed demons and the origin Dao fruit. It would be best if he could obtain a map of the land of sealed demons. Lin Feng rented a separate courtyard in a high-end inn. There was a hot spring in the courtyard. After comfortably soaking in the hot spring, he changed into a clean set of clothes and went straight to the Mercenary Association in Demon Sealing City. But here, Lin Feng couldn't find any useful information. As for the map of the land of sealed demons, the Mercenary Association provided more than a dozen versions. The land of sealed demons was a very mysterious place. Everything about that place was unknown. These maps were deduced by the higher-ups of the Mercenary Association after combining a lot of information. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. He didn't buy any maps, but left the Mercenary Association. In the distant crowd, Lin Feng saw a crippled cultivator. He looked to be in his 50s and had a shrewd look on his face. He held a pipe in his hand and kept smoking. After seeing this person, Lin Feng's pupils contracted violently. He didn't expect to see this person here. This was a person who had been missing for many years. Lin Feng had also been looking for him for many years. Saber Grandpa. Back then, he had led them into the death impasse, where Zishao had died tragically. Meanwhile, Zizhao's family heirloom, the golden Buddha that could dispel evil spirits and evil thoughts, had been snatched away. Zishao had saved Lin Feng's life, and Zishao had been right next to Lin Feng when he had been killed. Lin Feng couldn't forget this. He had sworn to take revenge for Zishao, but Lin Feng hadn't been able to find the murderer. There were two people Lin Feng suspected the most. One was Saber Lord, and the other was Qin Mubai from the ancient Qin family. Saber Lord had disappeared without a trace. Qin Mubai hadn't heard from him for a long time. Maybe he was in seclusion, or maybe he was training in another province. After all, the 3,000 provinces were too big. It was very difficult to meet him. Old man, let's see where you're going this time. Lin Feng clenched his teeth and quickly chased after Saber Lord. Saber Lord was very cautious. He looked behind him and saw Lin Feng, so he turned around and ran. He's running when he sees me. He must be guilty. He's probably the one who killed Zishao. Lin Feng's eyes were cold as he quickly chased after him. Get out of my way. Get out of my way. Saber Lord hadn't lost a leg, but he wasn't slow. He dashed left and right through the crowd. Lin Feng chased after him for half an hour. He finally caught up with Saber Lord just as he was about to leave the city. Lin Feng blocked him in a corner of the city. Saber Lord had nowhere to run. Why aren't you running anymore? Lin Feng looked at Saber Lord coldly. Saber Lord said angrily, "Are you bullying a disabled person? You don't look like a disabled person when you run." Lin Feng sneered. Saber Lord looked at Lin Feng cautiously and said, "Who are you? Why are you chasing me?" Lin Feng's mouth twitched. "Don't you know who I am? Why are you running?" Saber Lord didn't say anything. He just kept looking around. Saber Lord was very mysterious. Lin Feng guessed that this old man had done many immoral things in the past few years. He felt guilty. When he saw someone chasing him, he ran away. Lin Feng asked, "Do you remember what happened 11 years ago in the Eastern Province, the ancient Demon Mountain?" Saber Lord squinted his eyes and looked at Lin Feng. "So it was you. I was wondering why you looked so familiar. You killed my friend." Lin Feng looked at Saber Lord coldly. "Are you talking about that purple-robed young cultivator?" Saber Lord frowned. "It was you who killed him." Lin Feng's eyes flashed with killing intent. Saber Lord shook his head and said, "It wasn't me." At that time, I saw a hazy figure that attacked as quickly as lightning. It killed your friend in an instant and then disappeared without a trace. When I wanted to get close to you, I was taken to another place by the restrictions." Lin Feng frowned. Saber Lord's tone was very calm. It was obvious that he wasn't lying. If it wasn't Saber Lord, could it be Qin Mubai? "Do you think it was Qin Mubai?" Lin Feng asked. "It's hard to say." Saber Lord shook his head. "Actually, Many people were pulled into the eternal demon mountain because of the changes in the world. Many experts appeared in that area. Zijiao's tragic death made Lin Feng very sad. So many years had passed, but they still hadn't found Zijiao's murderer. Perhaps only when that person took out the golden Buddha statues would they be able to prove who the murderer was. I heard that you're doing well. Are you interested in doing something with me? Saber Lord squinted at Lin Feng. He was a very shrewd person. Lin Feng couldn't see through Saber Lord. Therefore, he had always been very cautious and guarded against Saber Lord. What is it? Lin Feng asked. The walls have ears. Let's go back to your place. Saber Lord said. Lin Feng nodded and went back to his place with Saber Lord. I accidentally obtained a map. It's said to be the place where an ancient devil died. Saber Lord said. Ancient devil? Lin Feng frowned. Saber Lord said, it's an ancient devil. It's probably equivalent to a giant god. Hiss. Hearing Saber Lord's words, Lin Feng couldn't help but gasp. Chapter 1272. An ancient devil on the level of a giant god was too shocking. Who knew how many shocking things would be left behind in the place of its death? Who knew they might even be able to find information about the origin Dao fruit there? You and I should work together. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes as he looked at Saber Lord. Lin Feng had some reservations about Saber Lord's words. One shouldn't have the heart to harm others, but one should always be on guard against others. This was especially true when facing a sly old fox like Saber Lord. Saber Lord said, I obtained this map from an auction. Since someone put it up for auction, it's very likely that more than one group of people know about it. That's why we need to find some experts. Lin Feng nodded. That's good too. Have you contacted anyone? Saber Lord nodded. I posted a Hellgrade mission in the black market. It's to explore the land of sealed demons. I'm sure we'll get an answer soon. It seems like there are quite a few people who aren't afraid of death. Lin Feng raised an eyebrow. Saber Lord said, some people would rather die than stay in the same place on the path of cultivation. These people have a strong heart and will. If they don't die, they'll definitely achieve great things in the future. Lin Feng said, and we're looking for such people. Saber Lord said. The next day, Lin Feng and Saber Lord went to the black market. They received news that a total of 7 people had agreed to join them and enter the land of sealed demons. Saber Lord frowned slightly. There aren't enough people. Lin Feng said, if they're all elites, then it's enough. Saber Lord nodded and told the manager where they were supposed to meet. The manager would act as a middleman and contact the 7 people before asking them to go to the meeting place. At night, Lin Feng and Saber Lord arrived at the agreed meeting place. This restaurant was called De Sheng, and it had the meaning of victory at the start. Not long after, the 7 people arrived one after another. Of the 7 people, 4 were men and 3 were women. Among the 4 men, there was an old man who looked like he was about to enter the ground. He was as thin as a match, and his body was stooped. After entering the land of sealed demons, there was one type of person that one had to pay attention to, and that was the old cultivators who were about to enter the ground. These people were usually nearing the end of their lifespans and wanted to enter the land of sealed demons before they died to try their luck. This kind of person was usually not to be trifled with. They were all people who were about to die. When they attacked, they naturally had no qualms about it. As for the other 3 men, one of them was a blind cultivator who looked to be in his 50s. His eyes were covered by an eye patch. There was also a one-armed, middle-aged cultivator. He was silent and carried a saber on his back. He looked like a one-armed swordsman who roamed the pugilistic world. The last man was dressed in a scholarly robe. He looked ordinary, like a scholar who was well-read. Among the three women, there was a beautiful woman who looked to be in her 30s. She wore a thin veil that covered her enchanting figure. She was extremely charming and alluring. The second woman was in her 20s and had a cold appearance. Moreover, she was wearing a veil, so it was unknown what she looked like. The third girl looked to be around 16 or 17 years old. She had a round face and big sparkling eyes. She looked very cute, but what made people spurt blood the most was her pair of plump breasts. That scale, it made Lin Feng feel dumbfounded. You can call me Saber Grandpa. Lin Qing, Saber Grandpa, and Lin Feng first introduced themselves. Lin Feng still used his alias. The other 7 people also introduced themselves. The old man called himself Ghost Elder. This name really matched his image. He really did look like a malicious spirit that had crawled out of a grave. Lin Feng guessed that this Ghost Elder was very likely an expert of the evil demons. Therefore, he was quite wary of this person. The blind cultivator was called Wu Mu. This name also sounded eerie. The one-armed cultivator was called Single Saber. The scholarly cultivator was called Yu Kunshin. Of the 3 women, the beautiful woman who was filled with an alluring aura was called Yu Liushi. The cold-veiled woman was called Nailin Jirua. The child-faced and busta female cultivator was called Wang Xiaonan. He didn't know how many of these 7 people had real names. Of course, Lin Feng didn't care if they had real names or not. As long as these people had outstanding abilities, it was fine. Saber Grandpa said, I have the map of the place where the giant demon fell. According to the rules, if we obtain any treasures, the 2 of us will be the first to pick. And then everyone else. If there are more treasures, then I will take 30% of the treasures, my little brother will take 20%, and the remaining 50% will be distributed by you guys. Do you have any objections to this distribution method? Saber Grandpa asked. Lin Feng never thought that Saber Grandpa would actually think of him when there were benefits. This caused Lin Feng's opinion of Saber Grandpa to change greatly. The other 7 nodded, indicating that there were no problems. Since there are no problems, then we will leave tomorrow and take the flying ship, Saber Grandpa said. Then everyone dispersed. Saber Grandpa followed Lin Feng to his residence. At night, the 2 of them had a drink in the courtyard. Late at night, in the depths of the demon ceiling grounds, a huge mountain peak collapsed. From the mountain peak, a mysterious ancient map flew out. Endless demonic energy surged. A terrifying demonic aura filled the world. At that moment, all living things in the world were alarmed. The demon-sealing ancient forest, which was filled with danger, became incomparably quiet, not to mention the roars of beasts. Even the chirping of insects and birds could not be heard. At that moment, everything was silent, and that ancient map became the only thing in this world. It attracted countless gazes. What happened? The cultivators outside the demon sealing grounds shouted in shock. Demon Sealing City, which was hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, was also alarmed. Countless cultivators rushed out. The mysterious ancient map flew out of the demon sealing grounds, shattering the void. Master, new master, where are you? A faintly discernible voice came from the ancient map. That voice seemed to have transcended endless time and space, coming from the ancient times. The divine weapon is looking for a new master. At that moment, countless people were shocked. A peerless divine weapon looking for a new master. This was enough to shock the world. How many people would be excited? The mysterious ancient map tore through the void, bringing with it endless demonic energy as it flew above Demon Sealing City. Catch it, a peerless expert made a move, wanting to take the ancient map. But in the end, he failed. The ancient map was too fast. In an instant, it shattered the void and disappeared without a trace. That's not a divine weapon. The demonic aura is overwhelming. Could it be that legendary demonic weapon? Someone shouted in shock, thinking of a legend. Is that the demonic weapon, 9 Demons diagram? It's ranked second among the Emperor weapons. An old cultivator said excitedly. Chapter 1273. The 9 Demon painting was extremely famous. During the primordial era, it had been refined by 7 ancient demon emperors, and its power was unimaginable. Moreover, it was rumored that the 9 Demon painting could be combined with another imperial weapon, the 9 Emperors painting, to complement each other. The 9 Emperors painting was also an imperial weapon, but it wasn't the same as the one Lin Feng had obtained in the early years. The 9 Emperors painting was the supreme imperial weapon of the primordial era, and it was ranked 4th on the imperial weapon rankings. The 9 Emperors painting that Lin Feng had obtained was only a replica forged from the original imperial weapon, the 9 Emperors painting. It had also imprinted the method to refine the 9 Emperors clones. The real imperial weapon, the 9 Emperors painting, had disappeared without a trace since the primordial era. Now that the 9 Devils diagram had appeared and was looking for a new master, this was just too shocking. Everyone was shocked and emotionally moved. At this moment, all the cultivators in the demon sealing city hurriedly took action, and all kinds of news quickly spread. Many people informed the families behind them, asking them to send experts to snatch the 9 Demon painting. Of course, there were also many cultivators who had already set off for the demon sealing city. They couldn't wait for the flying ship to arrive. The 9 Demon painting once again entered the demon sealing city and disappeared without a trace. Everything returned to normal, but the cultivators couldn't calm down. The 9 Demon painting is divided into 9 parts. That was just one part, Saber Lord said as he took a puff of his pipe. Saber Lord was being mysterious. He seemed to know a lot of secrets. Lin Feng asked, "Why would this imperial weapon be divided into 9 parts? I saw a record in a Taoist scripture. It said that during the chaos at the end of the primordial era, the demon race held the 9 Emperors painting. Both sides worked together to fight against a terrifying existence. They almost won, but in the end, that powerful existence couldn't destroy the 9 Demon painting and the 9 Emperors painting. So, the 9 Demon painting and the 9 Emperors painting were divided into 9 parts and scattered throughout the world." Saber Lord said. Lin Feng stroked his chin and said, "What kind of existence were the demon race and the demon race fighting against?" "I don't know. The records weren't very detailed. In reality, the primordial era has already passed for millions of years. It's very difficult for the future generations to know what happened back then. Even the introductions in ancient primordial era are doubted. Moreover, the more detailed the records are, the higher the possibility that they are fake." Saber Lord said. Lin Feng's heart twitched. "What you mean is that maybe someone changed the history." Saber Lord said, "You have to understand that history is written by the victors. What's so strange about it being tampered with to confuse later generations?" Saber Lord Saber, Lord Saber's Point Emperor's Saber Lord, said Lin Feng. "Do you have any proof? I have a feeling that you've discovered something." Saber Lord said, "I once met a primordial divine artifact. It had a very long lifespan, and I asked it about the primordial era, including the origin, beginning, and ending of the primordial era of chaos. Do you know how that primordial god answered me?" Lin Feng shook his head. "It doesn't have that memory in its memory. It seems to have been erased." Saber Lord said. Lin Feng was shocked. Memory erased? He suddenly thought of the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord only had fragmented memories. When the Demon Lord woke up, He would often sit on top of a grave and ponder. Actually, at that time, the Yao Lord was thinking about his lost memories. The demon lord tried to recall many things, but he failed. Lin Feng was starting to believe Saber, Lord's words. However, the current Lin Feng was just a nobody. He wasn't even a god. Those things weren't something he could worry about. The appearance of the 9 demons painting will definitely lead to a bloodbath, Saber Lord said. It won't be easy to obtain the 9 demons painting. Lin Feng rubbed his chin. Lin Feng felt that it was strange that the 9 demons painting would appear at this time. He had a feeling that there was a conspiracy going on. However, Lin Feng quickly shook his head and got rid of that thought. Perhaps the restrictions suppressing the 9 demons painting were no longer able to suppress this monarch weapon. That was why the 9 demons painting appeared. On the second day, the 9 of them gathered together. The 9 demon picture is divided into 9 parts, but even if it's only one part, it can still fight against ordinary great imperial weapons. If someone wants to look for the 9 demon picture, they can leave the group first. Saber Lord said. Elder Gue laughed strangely and said, "There's no rush to find the 9 demons painting. This kind of treasure won't choose a new owner until the last moment. Let's first find the place where the giant demon fell, and then wait for the various powers to fight to the death for the 9 demons painting. It won't be too late to snatch the 9 demons painting when they suffer heavy losses. Since that's the case, let's go," Saber Lord said. The 9 of them went to the plaza to board the flying ship. At the teleportation plaza. Many people were lining up to board the ship because it was relatively safe to board the ship. Of course, the cost was also extremely high. It was not a problem to board the ship, but the prerequisite was that you had to have enough top-grade spirit stones. Originally, it only cost 100 top-grade spirit stones to take a flying ship to the demon sealing grounds, but now the price had crazily increased by 10 times. One person needed 1,000 top-grade spirit stones. This was not a number that anyone could afford. Lin Feng's group of 7 boarded the flying ship. They asked for a VIP box and spent 20,000 top-grade spirit stones. Along the way, they encountered many dangers, but they were all safe and sound. Until one day when they passed through a foggy mountain forest. When the flying ship arrived above a deep abyss, rumble, the flying ship suffered a huge impact. Then Lin Feng felt as if the flying ship was about to fall. Many people in the flying ship were swaying. What's going on? Many cultivators cried out in fear. Roar! At that moment, the roar of a beast could be heard. An extremely terrifying beast attacked the flying ship, causing it to fall rapidly. Then, the furious roars of cultivators could be heard. In the outside world, the cultivators and the beasts seemed to be fighting. In the end, the flying ship stabilized and turned into a ray of light that rushed into the distance. The furious and unwilling roars of the beasts could be heard from behind. Many people in the flying ship heaved a sigh of relief. They had finally gotten rid of that terrifying beast safely. 10 days later, the flying ship arrived at the demon sealing grounds. When Lin Feng and the others came down, many cultivators had already gathered here. Cultivators continued to enter the demon sealing grounds. Elder Ghost said sinisterly, "How can an imperial weapon be so easy to obtain? These people are just going to die." Chapter 1274. Lin Feng said, "Actually, many people didn't come here just for the imperial armament. Now that so many cultivators have entered the land of sealed demons, there are opportunities everywhere. When there are fewer people entering the land of sealed demons, it'll be more dangerous. The more people there are, the safer it'll be. Even if we encounter vicious beasts or powerful restrictions, the more people there are, the more likely we'll be able to solve the problem." The others nodded. feeling that Lin Feng's words made sense. Where will we enter the land of sealed demons? Ulyoshi asked. Saber Lord said, Follow me. Everyone quickly left. They entered the land of sealed demons in a different region. This was a valley that was covered in restrictions. When the group of people arrived, this place was extremely quiet. The restrictions have been destroyed. It seems that some experts have already entered, Lin Feng said as he stroked his chin. Saber Lord said, Everyone, be careful. Don't get ambushed. Everyone nodded. They had to be careful when entering a place like the land of sealed demons. Otherwise, it was very likely that they would die. They carefully walked into the depths of the valley. The valley was very long and emitted a gloomy and cold aura. After walking for more than half an hour, everyone walked out of the valley. What appeared in front of them was a foggy world. Brown fog lingered around, and the visibility was extremely low. Besides, at that moment, under the cover of the black fog, a few dozen flying swords were moving towards Lin Feng, and the others at the speed of lightning. They were really too fast. Someone was hiding in the shadows and launching a sneak attack on them. You're courting death. Everyone couldn't help but shout in anger and take out their weapons to block the flying swords. Fortunately, everyone had been on high alert since entering the land of sealed demons. So Lin Feng and the others immediately noticed the flying swords. Clang, clang, clang. A series of collisions rang out, and the flying swords were blocked by Lin Feng and the others. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Immediately after that, one flying sword after another flew back, and over 30 cultivators rushed out to surround Lin Feng and the other 8 cultivators. The leader of the group was a cultivator shrouded in a black robe. His face couldn't be seen clearly, but he sneered and said, You're quite alert, but there are only 9 of you. You're doomed to die. These cultivators were abnormally powerful. Moreover, they were well prepared. They all took out their talismans and activated them. Then, these people took out their talismans. Boom, boom, boom. One talisman after another exploded, and a destructive wave swept out. These talismans were extremely precious talismans. Once they exploded, the damage they would cause would be extremely shocking. When the talisman exploded, the cold woman Nalan Jirua took out a Chinquan bag-type treasure. This treasure was called the Kunlun pouch. It had endless uses. Not only could it devour all kinds of attacks, but it could also store people. It was said that this treasure could store even thousands of soldiers and horses. After Nalan Jirua took out the Kunlun pouch, all the energy from the explosion was swallowed by the Kunlun pouch. Then one cultivator after another flew into the Kunlun pouch. Those cultivators' bodies quickly shrank in midair. Then they were swallowed by the Kunlun pouch. What a powerful treasure! Lin Feng was shocked. This was the first time he had seen a treasure that could devour cultivators' treasures so unscrupulously. Mournful screams were heard. Those cultivators who were swallowed by the Kunlun pouch immediately died miserably. The Kunlun pouch was very strange. It seemed to be devouring the cultivator's flesh and blood essence. Out of the 30 cultivators, only 7 or 8 managed to escape. The rest were all swallowed by Nalan Jirua's Kunlun pouch. Nalan Jirua still had a cold expression on her face. She took her time to put away her Kunlun pouch. This woman can't be offended. At this moment, the other 8 people in the group all had the same thought. Nalan Jirua, who had the Kunlun pouch, was someone they couldn't provoke. If they angered Nalan Jirua, the consequences would be terrible, Saber Lord said. Just as we guessed before, the person who obtained this map is not a group of people. We have to be more careful. I don't want to be a mantis in the eyes of others. Wang Xiaonan quickly nodded and said, That's right, We have to be the aureole. When she nodded, her full breasts bounced back and forth. It was really full of endless temptation. See no evil. Lin Feng shifted his gaze. However, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart. How did Wang Xiaonan raise this? The group continued to walk deeper. This time, they were much more careful than before. The deeper they went, the more sinister they felt. They couldn't help but have goosebumps all over their bodies. Ah! Suddenly, a miserable scream came from ahead. It was extremely tragic, and it made one's hair stand on end. Let's go and take a look. Lin Feng and the others quickly rushed over. When they arrived at the area, they saw 7 or 8 cultivator corpses lying on the ground. It was the group of cultivators who had ambushed them before. Beside those corpses, there were living beings shrouded in black fog. Not good. It's the infernal ghost soldiers. The spectral elder's expression suddenly changed, and he shouted, let's go quickly. Don't let the infernal ghost soldiers catch up to us. They're said to be undying and difficult to kill. Everyone's expression changed slightly, and they quickly rushed into the distance. Many of the infernal ghost soldiers had already discovered them and were chasing after them. Lin Feng asked, what are the infernal ghost soldiers? The infernal ghost soldiers are ghost soldiers that are connected to the underworld. You've heard of the Infernal Palace, right? The Infernal Palace is equivalent to the place where ghost soldiers are born in the underworld, and the Infernal Palace is where ghost generals are born in the underworld. The ghost soldiers and ghost generals produced by the Infernal Palace are different from ordinary ghost soldiers and ghost generals because these ghost soldiers and ghost generals have undying bodies. It's impossible to kill them, and encountering them is basically a path to death. The spectral elder's voice was extremely serious. Lin Feng had previously guessed that the spectral elder was an evil cultivator, but now it seemed that he might not be an evil cultivator, but an extremely rare ghost cultivator. Lin Feng had seen a ghost cultivator before, and it was the Azura ghost Luo Yen in the magnetic fog lake. However, it was obvious that a ghost cultivator like the Azura ghost Luo Yen was far from being able to compare to an old ghost cultivator like the spectral elder. Lin Feng and the others were finally surrounded by a group of infernal ghost soldiers. Nalan Jiruo wanted to use her Kunlun pouch to collect them, but she discovered that her Kunlun pouch was unable to do so. These infernal ghost soldiers are too strange. Even my Kunlun pouch is unable to collect them. Nalan Jiruo's pretty face became very unsightly. Chapter 1275. If we can't collect them, then we'll break out. Dan Dao shouted. He wielded his saber with one arm and slashed at a ghost soldier that was pouncing towards him. Clang! The claws of the infernal ghost soldier were too sharp. When they collided with Dan Dao's long sword, there was a clanging sound. Surprisingly, the infernal ghost soldier was able to block Dan Dao's attack. This monster's claws were too hard. They were like the most powerful magic treasures, indestructible. Dozens of ghost soldiers charged over from the surroundings and surrounded Lin Feng and the others. The two sides immediately clashed. It was not easy to break out of the ghost soldiers' encirclement. Lin Feng took out his Sarira and Bodhi seed, the two most precious Buddhist treasures. Buddhist light swirled around them, illuminating the heavens. That dazzling Buddhist light emitted an astonishing fluctuation. The Buddhist light illuminated the ground and swept towards the ghost soldiers. Buddhist treasures. Everyone was shocked. They squinted at the Sarira and Bodhi seed that Lin Feng had taken out. Lin Feng's Buddhist treasures allowed everyone to see hope in defeating the ghost soldiers. However, what caused everyone's expression to change drastically was that when the Buddhist light swept across the netherworld ghost soldier's body, only sizzling sounds could be heard. The black fog surrounding the nether ghost soldiers emitted burning sounds. However, This level of burning could not cause too much damage to the Nether Ghost soldiers. The Sarira and Bodhi seed were magic treasures that could restrain ghosts, but they were unable to harm the ghost soldiers. This was something that Lin Feng and the others had not expected. How can these ghost soldiers be so strange? Lin Feng frowned. Flesh and blood bodies. These ghost soldiers must have started to condense their own flesh and blood bodies. Once they do, they will be able to resist the attacks of Buddhist treasures. Elder Gui's voice was grave. Everyone's expressions changed. They had started to condense their flesh and blood bodies. This was too terrifying. No wonder those cultivators had died tragically to the ghost soldiers' attacks. Lin Feng put away the Sarira and Bodhi seed. At that moment, the ghost soldiers' attacks became more and more fierce. Puff! Suddenly, the sound of flesh being torn apart rang out. A netherworld ghost soldier had grabbed the one-eyed Wu Mu's abdomen. Instantly, a large wound appeared on the one-eyed Wu Mu's body, and blood flowed out. Soon, his body was dyed crimson with fresh blood. When the ghost soldiers of hell smelled the scent of blood, they immediately rushed towards the shaman tomb, like crazy. Slash! Lin Feng swung the black dragon sword, sending the Yin Chao ghost soldiers flying. "Are you all right?" Lin Feng asked. "Thank you for saving me, Brother Lin." "I won't die," Wu Mu said. "Be careful." Lin Feng spoke, after which he engaged in close combat with the swarming Yin demon soldiers. His sword slashed down on the bodies of the Yin demon soldiers, and the sound of collision actually rang out. It was as if he had struck a weapon. What body is this? Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes. The netherworld ghost soldiers' bodies were too terrifying. They were practically invulnerable. Therefore, Lin Feng knew that the situation was very troublesome. If this continued, they would be trapped to death by the netherworld ghost soldiers. "Ghost Elder, don't you have any methods to escape?" Lin Feng looked at the Ghost Elder and asked in a deep voice. The Ghost Elder gave Lin Feng an unfathomable feeling. He was definitely hiding many powerful methods. However, the Ghost Elder hadn't revealed himself on the way here, so it was easy for people to overlook him. However, Lin Feng had been paying attention to the Ghost Elder from the very beginning. Moreover, Lin Feng was now certain that the Ghost Elder was a ghost cultivator. Ghost cultivators usually had many unimaginable methods. Therefore, Lin Feng believed that the Ghost Elder was also hiding such methods. It was just that he hadn't used them until now. If he didn't hurry the Ghost Elder would probably continue to waste time and not make a move. The others also looked at the Ghost Elder. The Ghost Elder laughed strangely and said, "I naturally have a way to escape, but it will consume one of my treasures. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I won't use it." The group of people rolled their eyes. The Ghost Elder had indeed been hiding some powerful methods. Wang Xiaonan looked at the Ghost Elder with a pitiful expression and said, "Grandpa, if you don't make a move, we'll all die here. If we die here, you won't be able to reach the ancient Devil Fall by yourself." "Fine. Since that's the case, I'll have to consume this treasure today." After saying that, the Ghost Elder took out a stack of yellow paper. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth twitched violently. "Yellow paper? Are you going to use it to deal with the netherworld ghost soldiers?" The Ghost Elder said, "This is netherworld paper. It's rumored that the 10 kings of hell used this paper to write imperial edicts. It has countless uses." As soon as he finished speaking, the Ghost Elder used the yellow paper to make paper people. Little people made of yellow paper? What kind of technique is that? Lin Feng and the others looked at the Ghost Elder suspiciously. Swish! At that moment, there was a flash of light, and the little people made of yellow paper turned into big golden men. Golden strongmen, Stop these netherworld ghost soldiers, the ghost elder said with a smile. Yes. After receiving the order, the golden strongmen quickly charged at the netherworld ghost soldiers. What shocked Lin Feng and the others was that the golden strongmen were actually able to hold the netherworld ghost soldiers back. The netherworld ghost soldiers' powerful attacks landed on the golden strongmen, but they couldn't harm them at all. What a strange technique. Everyone was shocked. The ghost elders' yellow paper people were really powerful. Let's go, the ghost elder said, and took the lead to fly into the distance. Lin Feng and the others didn't dare to hesitate. They followed closely behind the ghost elder and flew into the distance. In the distance, the netherworld ghost soldiers were constantly rushing out of the abyss, chasing after Lin Feng and the others. They didn't dare to stop, so they pushed their speed to the limit. In the end, the group finally rushed out of the black fog. The pursuing netherworld ghost soldiers seemed to be unable to leave the black fog world. They stood at the edge of the black fog world and roared angrily. Phew! Seeing that the netherworld ghost soldiers couldn't chase after them. Everyone was relieved. Something's not right. Something is approaching us. At that moment, Wu Mu suddenly said in a deep voice. Perhaps because Wu Mu was blind, his ears were especially sharp and his perception was especially strong. Look, what's that? Suddenly, Wang Xiaonan pointed into the distance. There was a black mass in the sky, but they didn't know what it was. A cold and gloomy aura spread out. Roar! The roars of beasts came from the forest. The powerful, ferocious beasts quickly fled into the distance. There were also some huge birds that flew into the distance. However, when the unknown black creature covered the sky like a dark cloud flew over, neither the birds nor the ferocious beasts in the forest were able to escape successfully. After the group of black creatures flew over, only white bones remained of the ferocious beasts in the forest. In the air, the skeletons of the flying beasts fell to the ground with blood dripping from them. Their flesh and blood were all devoured by the terrifying creatures in an instant. Run, quickly run. Chapter 1276. Those unknown creatures were too terrifying. Lin Feng and the others didn't dare to stay any longer. They quickly flew into the distance. It was hard to imagine what kind of creature it was. Even so many powerful wild beasts and birds had been instantly devoured. If they had been surrounded by those creatures, wouldn't they have suffered the same fate? Everyone pushed their speed to the limit, turning into streaks of light as they charged forward. Wait for me. Wang Xiaonan called out from behind. Her cultivation was the weakest among them, and she was also the slowest. She had been left behind by Lin Feng and the others. She would occasionally look in horror at the terrifying creatures behind them. Her face was as pale as a sheet of paper. However, they couldn't even take care of themselves right now. Who had the time to care about Wang Xiaonan? Woo-woo, don't leave me behind. Wang Xiaonan cried out in horror. She was so scared that she started crying. Lin Feng turned back and grabbed Wang Xiaonan's waist, then fled madly into the distance. Lin Feng couldn't bear to see such a beautiful girl like Wang Xiaonan die here. A man should have a tender heart for the fairer sex. Big brother Lin Feng, you're such a good person. Wang Xiaonan looked at Lin Feng happily. It's nothing, Lin Feng said. At that moment, he suddenly felt something heavy on his arm. Only then did he realize that something huge was pressing down on his arm. Oh my God! Lin Feng couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He couldn't help but be shocked by Wang Xiaonan's development. However, Lin Feng quickly adjusted his emotions. Now wasn't the time to be distracted. Escaping was more important. The group fled madly for an hour before they finally broke away from those terrifying creatures. Lin Feng reluctantly let go of Wang Xiaonan. When he hugged Wang Xiaonan's waist, His arm was pressed down by something heavy. However, that was also a kind of enjoyment. This place is really dangerous. Yoshi sighed. She sighed emotionally. Her pink lips parted slightly, and only now did she let out a long sigh. Yoshi's alluring appearance was truly alluring. Wang Xiaonan patted her full breasts and said with lingering fear, "Yes, if it wasn't for Big Brother Lin, I might have died already." Lushi looked at Lin Feng and Wang Xiaonan with an ambiguous gaze. She smiled and said, "Didn't you feel very safe when Lin Gongzi hugged you earlier?" Wang Xiaonan couldn't help but blush slightly when she recalled the scene at that time. She looked at Yoshi and snorted, "If you want to know, you can let Big Brother Lin hug you. You'll know the answer when the time comes." Although Wang Xiaonan looked innocent and adorable, she didn't know what to say. She knew that Yoshi was teasing her, so Wang Xiaonan didn't hold back in the slightest. Yoshi choked on Wang Xiaonan's words and did not react for a long time. Lin Feng didn't want them to continue arguing on this topic. Once a woman started arguing about something, it would definitely be endless. Lin Feng said, "There was a reason why I hugged Xiaonan just now. As a man, I can ignore my image, but girls care a lot about these things, so let's not talk about this anymore to avoid damaging Xiaonan's image. Let's not stay here any longer and move forward." Yoshi didn't continue targeting Wang Xiaonan after hearing Lin Feng's words. Saber Lord took out a map and studied it carefully. In the end, he chose a path, and the group of 9 continued forward. A day later, they arrived outside a huge valley. It should be here. This valley is called the Forbidden Valley, and it's about 10 miles long. There are powerful restrictions here. Once we pass through this valley, we'll reach the ancient Devil Fall. Saber Lord said excitedly. Everyone's spirits were roused. After going through so many dangers, they were finally about to reach their destination. They were naturally very happy. I can faintly sense that there are quite a few powerful restrictions here, but the naked, I can't see them. Smoothly passing through this valley won't be easy. Yukunshin said. Lin Feng said, "Everyone, follow behind me. Don't wander off." Everyone's eyes lit up, and Wang Xiaonan said, "Big Brother Lin, you can see through these restrictions." Lin Feng nodded and said, "Follow behind me. Let's move." With Lin Feng's inheritance from the Celestial Master Sect, he didn't need to use the heavenly demon snake eye to sense where the restrictions were. Under his lead, the group ventured deeper into the valley. They traveled a full 5 miles, avoiding all of the restrictions. Everyone had a shocked expression on their faces. They hadn't thought that Lin Feng would be able to help them avoid the dangerous deployment spells, and on top of that, he could do it so easily. A fork in the road appeared in front of them, and Lin Feng stopped there. "There are 2 paths. Which one should we take?" Yoshi looked at Lin Feng. The others also looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was proficient in formations, so they would naturally listen to Lin Feng's opinion. Lin Feng said, "The path on the left is less dangerous, but it's still covered in restrictions. The path on the right, on the other hand, is much more dangerous. There aren't any restrictions here, but rather a crack in the void. From time to time, void energy will leak out." "Then should we take the path on the left?" Nayland Giroux asked. "No, the right one." Lin Feng said. "Why do we have to take the more dangerous path instead of the safer one?" Everyone was puzzled. Lin Feng said, "The path on the left isn't safe either. The path ahead isn't as dangerous as the one on the right, but I feel that the deeper we go, the more dangerous it will be. It seems like there's hope, but it's actually a dead end. The path on the right seems like a dead end, but there's also a chance of survival." "What do you mean by that?" Everyone was puzzled. Said Lin Feng. Remember, the more dangerous a place is, the more likely it is to die. In that kind of place, life usually means death. In death, there is always a chance to live. That's because the Tao of heaven is flawed. The path of life is filled with danger. The path of death is filled with danger, but the path of death is filled with danger. This was a saying recorded in the Celestial Master Sect's inheritance. It had been summarized by the Celestial Master Sect's ancestor, so it made sense. Everyone fell silent. Everyone, follow me closely, Lin Feng reminded them. At that moment, the celestial demon snake opened its eyes. When the celestial demon snake opened its eyes, Lin Feng saw a distorted crack in the void. A terrifying void energy leaked out from the crack, enough to instantly tear apart a Tao artifact. From this, one could see how terrifying the void energy was. If a body of flesh and blood was hit by this void energy, it would be very dangerous. Luckily, Lin Feng had opened his celestial beast snake eyes and could see all the cracks in the sky. He took the others to avoid them one by one. They walked about 1 kilometer. Suddenly, a miserable shriek came from behind them. Everyone looked over and was shocked to see that Yu Kunshan, who was at the back of the group, was in trouble. A pitch-black bug, about 1/2 meter long, had emerged from a crack in the void. Its sharp claws had pierced his chest from behind. Yu Kunshan lowered his head and stared in disbelief at the claw that had pierced his chest and was still dripping blood. Am I going to die just like that? Yu Kunshan laughed bitterly and fell to the ground. Chapter 1277. It's a void god-eater bug. Lin Feng took a deep breath. He couldn't help but turn pale. He had heard about the empty space god-eating insect before. He had also seen pictures of them, but he had never seen them in real life. Now, he had actually seen one here. The void god-eater bug was one of the most terrifying types of bugs. It lived in shattered space or cracked space, and it could travel through space-time at will. Moreover, its body was tough, and it could appear and disappear unpredictably. The void god-eater bug was like the most powerful killer, silently closing in on its prey. And then its sharp claws could instantly pierce its prey's chest. That was how Yu Kunshan had died. Before the void god-eater bug had attacked him, Yu Kunshan hadn't even noticed the bug's presence. Once the void god-eater bug attacked, it was practically a fatal attack. Quick, kill it! Everyone panicked. They had all heard of the void god-eater bug before, and now that it had appeared here, it could very well be a devastating blow. If they were not careful, all of them might become the prey of the void god-eater bugs, and then be eaten by them. Everyone took out their magic treasures and attacked the void god-eater bug. Swoosh! However, the void god-eater bug was abnormally fast, and it instantly drilled into a crack in space, disappearing without a trace. Lin Feng and the others' attacks all missed. Squeaking sounds rang out one after another. Could it be? Lin Feng thought of a certain possibility, and his scalp went numb. Wang Xiaonan cried out in horror. There can't be a lot of void god-eater bugs here, right? The next moment, one void god-eater bug after another drilled out of the cracks in space. There were a total of 400 to 500 void god-eater bugs. When Lin Feng saw those empty space godly insects, his face turned deathly pale. The number of spirit-eating bugs of void was too large. One of these horrible and evil creatures was extremely difficult to deal with, let alone 400 or 500 of them. This number was too large. Nayland Giroir wanted to use the Kunlun pouch to swallow these void god-eater bugs. But this time, she didn't succeed. The life forms in the land of sealed demons were very strange. All of them seemed to be able to resist the Kunlun pouch's ability to swallow them. Of course, it was also possible that the order laws of the land of sealed demons were suppressing the Kunlun pouch's ability to devour the living beings of the land of sealed demons. As for the Kunlun pouch, it could only devour foreign cultivators for now. What should we do? Are we going to die here? Wang Xiaonan cried out in horror. The others also had gloomy and hopeless expressions. Now that the God-eater bugs were everywhere, they already had no way to escape. If they were in a safe place, they might be able to fight these void God-eater bugs. Perhaps they could break out of the encirclement. However, this place was filled with cracks in the void. He couldn't move around at all. If he moved carelessly and touched a crack in the void, the bugs wouldn't even need to attack him. He would be killed by the cracks in the void. "Little girl, don't worry. With me here, we won't die," Wu Mu said. At that moment, Wu Mu spoke up. He took out a golden bell. Wu Mu held the golden bell in his hand and gently shook it. Patter, patter, patter. The densely packed void God-eater bugs fell from the sky. By the time they fell to the ground, they were already dead. The void God-eater bugs that hadn't died let out ear-piercing screams of terror and fled. In the end, a large number of void God-eater bugs' corpses fell to the ground. A small number of them escaped into the cracks in the void and disappeared without a trace. We actually managed to survive. Wang Xiaonan couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Lin Feng and the others were also overjoyed. They had originally been in despair. They hadn't expected Wu Mu to take out such a powerful treasure. These people really aren't simple. Lin Feng was also very shocked. Clearly, they dared to enter the demon sealing land to search for treasures. Every one of them had a lot of hidden methods. Nailan Zhirua took out the Kunlun pouch and swallowed the attacks of a group of cultivators. She even swallowed more than 20 cultivators. Then there was Elder Gui, who turned into a paper golem to fight against the ghost soldiers. And now there was Wu Mu, who used the mysterious bell to kill 300 to 400 void God-eater bugs. Lin Feng guessed that Wu Mu was very likely a cultivator who specialized in beast taming. Of course, Lin Feng didn't ask about it. They had only formed a temporary team. Everyone had their secrets. Asking about other people's secrets would only lead to suspicion and vigilance. Lin Feng looked at Yukunshin's corpse. When a large number of void God-eater bugs appeared, many of them quickly ate Yukunshin's corpse clean. Not even his bones were left behind. Lin Feng and the others didn't dare to stay, and quickly left this place. After walking for about 1 mile, the 8 of them finally saw the exit and walked towards it. At that moment, more than 10 cultivators appeared at the exit. These cultivators looked indifferent and attacked Lin Feng and the others. The leader of the cultivators sneered and said, "You're quite strong to be able to come here, but it's time to end this, including all of you. All of you die." Boom, boom, boom. All kinds of powerful divine abilities were used, forming a torrent of attacks that drowned Lin Feng and the others. These attacks were really tyrannical. Most importantly, Lin Feng and the others hadn't walked out of the area filled with spatial cracks. They could only move around a small area. Now, facing these powerful attacks, they could only passively take a beating. This situation was naturally very dangerous. If it were anyone else, they might have died without a burial place. But Nailan Zhirua's Kunlun pouch was too powerful. She directly took out the Kunlun pouch. This treasure was activated by Nailan Zhirua. All the attacks were swallowed by the Kunlun pouch. Then, the Kunlun pouch showed its power, and a powerful suction force surged out. The cultivators who were attacking Lin Feng and the others flew uncontrollably toward the Kunlun pouch. Their bodies kept shrinking. "Spare us, we were wrong. Spare us this time." Many cultivators cried out in horror. Now, there was only endless fear in their hearts. Nailan Zhirua was unmoved and continued to control the Kunlun pouch to swallow these cultivators. "Do you know who we are? We're There were also cultivators who wanted to introduce themselves to threaten Nalen Jirua, but those cultivators were swallowed by the Kunlun pouch before they could finish their words. Mournful screams were heard. One cultivator after another died tragically in the Kunlun pouch. This Kunlun pouch was extremely strange. It had swallowed more than 20 people last time, and those people's flesh and blood must have been devoured by the Kunlun pouch. Now, these cultivators were the same. They had died tragically in the Kunlun pouch, and their flesh and blood had been devoured by the Kunlun pouch. Nalen Jirua immediately put away the Kunlun pouch. Lin Feng and the others hurriedly walked out of the area filled with spatial cracks. They came to a safe area and looked into the depths. They saw black fog lingering in the depths. They could vaguely see a huge mountain that was thousands of meters tall. It was majestic and gave off a heavy aura. Chapter 1278. When they arrived in front of the mountain, they saw a huge cave. The cave was sealed with restrictions, so if they wanted to enter, they would have to break the restrictions. The task of breaking the restrictions was naturally left to Lin Feng. The restrictions sealing the cave were extremely powerful, but they weren't enough to stump Lin Feng, the successor of the Celestial Master's branch. He successfully tore open the restrictions, allowing everyone to enter. Once everyone was inside, Lin Feng followed closely behind. The entrance to the cave was extremely large. It was a huge cave with a diameter of 10 meters. The group cautiously walked into the cave. A gloomy aura emanated from the cave from time to time. Wang Xiaonan said, "There won't be anything terrifying inside, right?" Elder Gui laughed strangely and said, "Anything can happen in such a gloomy place. There might even be a Yin spirit." A Yin spirit? Wang Xiaonan was so frightened that her face paled slightly. She tightly hugged Lin Feng's arm, as if she wanted to find some sense of security with Lin Feng around. Lin Feng immediately felt his arm sink into a ball of softness. That feeling made him involuntarily suck in a breath of cold air. Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. Didn't this girl know how alluring her body was? Wasn't she afraid of arousing his lust by touching him like that? He really didn't know if Wang Xiaonan was truly innocent or if she was doing it on purpose. Lin Feng said, "There's nothing wrong with being careful. Don't be so close to obtaining the treasure, only to fail miserably in the end." Everyone nodded solemnly. Soon they entered the belly of a huge mountain. The belly of the mountain was like a beehive. It was densely packed with holes. "There are so many tunnels. Which one should we go through?" Yoshi frowned slightly. Saber Lord said, "Just pick one. I have a feeling that these hundreds of holes are all connected and will lead to the same place in the end." Lin Feng's opinion was exactly the same as Saber Lord's. He also felt that this was very likely. The group of them chose a path and entered it, heading inside. Lin Feng looked at Wang Xiaonan, who had been hugging his arm. Looking down, he could even see a tempting, snow-white skin. Lin Feng said, "Xiaonan, you don't have to worry. If there really is danger, we'll take care of you. Let go of my hand now. If there really is danger, if you hold on to my arm like this, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to act." Wang Xiaonan's pretty face slightly blushed as she nodded her head. Only then did she release Lin Feng's arm. However, she continued to follow behind Lin Feng. The group continued to venture deeper and deeper. And indeed, they found that the depths of the tunnels were intertwined and connected together. In the end, they found an enormous stone gate that was 100 meters tall inside the mountain that was full of tunnels that extended in all directions. This should be a stone room. It was unknown who cultivated here, but everyone was astonished. "Let's open the stone door together," Saber Lord said. Everyone came to the front of the stone door and exerted force together. Rumble! rumble. Finally, under the combined efforts of the 8 people, the stone door was pushed open bit by bit. Finally, the stone door was pushed open, and a gap big enough for one person to enter was opened. The group entered the stone door one after another. The stone room was extremely large, and at the top of the room was a huge 8 trigrams diagram. In the middle of the room was a sacrificial altar. On the altar was a coffin. Could it be the coffin that the ancient devil was buried in? Lin Feng and the others were astonished. They walked towards the coffin, and at that moment, 3 cultivators suddenly entered the stone room from outside. Ha ha! Thank you for helping us break through the layers of restrictions here. Loud laughter rang out. The 3 cultivators who had entered the stone room were all wearing green linen clothes, and they all looked extremely old. However, each of them had a terrifying chi that could make one's soul tremble. These 3 people were definitely existences at the level of old immortals. The Yin-Yang elders, it's you. The spectral elder recognized the identities of the 3 old men, and his face became incomparably gloomy. Isn't that the Ghost King's 1,000 annihilation? You old bastard, you're still alive? The old man on the left sneered coldly. You're still alive, so how could I die? Elder Ghost said with a gloomy expression. Who are these 3 people? Asked Lin Feng in a low voice. Saber Lord said solemnly. The 3 Yin-Yang elders are the 3 strongest cultivators of the Yin-Yang sect. They were all people from more than 20,000 years ago, and each one of them was extremely powerful. I'm afraid that they're close to becoming gods. Lin Feng took a deep breath. Close to the god realm? That was too terrifying. Die here. All the treasures, divine abilities, and everything left behind by the ancient devil will be ours, said the Yin-Yang elders gloomily. The map that Lord Saber had obtained had probably been given to the auction house by the Yin-Yang elders. The 3 old bastards had been looking for people to break through the layers of restrictions, and the Yin-Yang elders had been hiding in the dark. They hadn't done anything, and when it was time to collect the treasures, the Yin-Yang elders would come out and reap the benefits. Little brat Lin, you go open the coffin. We'll deal with the Yin-Yang elders together, shouted Senior Ghost. He had been in the same era as the Yin-Yang elders, so he knew how terrifying they were. Nailin Jirua took out her Kunlun pouch, and the 7 of them activated it together. They wanted to use it to devour the Yin-Yang elders. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. The 3 Yin-Yang elders sneered. They did not even use their Dharma treasures when they attacked. They simply slapped the Kunlun pouch with their palms. The Kunlun pouch, which was activated by 7 powerful cultivators, was sent flying by the 3 Yin-Yang elders. The 3 Yin-Yang elders were too strong. Gui Kai and me, looks like you're really not going to make it. You've weakened too much. The Yin-Yang elders sneered. They spoke at the same time. As far as the Yin-Yang elders were concerned, the others were just nobodies. Only Senior Ghost was a threat. Don't be too happy. Ghost Elder let out a strange laugh. Together with the rest of the people, they frantically activated the Kunlun pouch to attack the Yin-Yang elders. The 2 sides clashed again and again. At that moment, Lin Feng was trying to break through the restrictions on the coffin. The formation-splitting technique passed down by the Celestial Master Sect was extremely powerful. The runes on the coffin cracked, and finally, Lin Feng opened it. Boom! A terrifying aura spread out from the coffin, and Lin Feng was sent flying a dozen meters away. Wah! He coughed up a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. Balls of energy flew out, one after another. It was unknown what they contained, but they all emitted shocking fluctuations. The treasures have appeared. Everyone's eyes lit up. They couldn't care less about fighting, and they all rushed toward the treasures. Lin Feng couldn't care less about the pain in his body. He crawled up and was about to pounce on the treasures floating in the air. Don't try to take those things. The real treasure is the coffin. Hurry up and take the coffin. Leave this place. At that moment, the demon lord's voice echoed in Lin Feng's mind. Chapter 1279. The demon lord had been in seclusion for some time. Lin Feng did not expect the demon lord to appear at this time. Not the treasures, but the coffins? Lin Feng was surprised to hear that the demon lord wanted him to snatch the coffins. You're courting death. On the other side, the three Yin-Yang elders were enraged when they saw the ghost elder and the others pouncing on the treasures floating in the air. The strength of these three people was abnormally tyrannical. One of them swept out with a punch and directly killed Yidao. Then, the second person slapped Nailan Giraud, who was holding the Kunlun pouch. Clearly, the three Yin-Yang elders were afraid and greedy of the Kunlun pouch in Nailan Giraud's hands. They wanted to kill her first. Nailan Giraud's expression changed. She controlled the Kunlun pouch and attacked the cultivator, who attacked her. Bang! The two sides collided. Nailan Giraud was instantly sent flying. Barf! Nailan Giraud spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was as pale as paper. Any one of the three Yin-Yang elders was too strong. It was too difficult for Nailan Giraud to control the Kunlun pouch alone to fight against cultivators at the level of the three Yin-Yang elders. If it was not for the Kunlun pouch's protection, she would have been killed long ago. The third person was the most powerful of the three Yin-Yang elders. The other two treated him as their leader. His attack was even more terrifying. He enveloped the ghost elder, saber lord Wu Mu, Wang Xiaonan, and Yu Liushi with a single move. Then he collided with the five of them and actually forced them to retreat. At this moment, the three Yin-Yang elders did not notice Lin Feng. This was because Lin Feng did not try to snatch the unknown treasures wrapped in the black light. Lin Feng's target was the somewhat worn-out coffin. It was a coffin made of wood. Usually, only ordinary people in the secular world would choose to use wooden coffins. As for the world of cultivators, there were all kinds of coffins that powerful cultivators used to bury themselves. For example, the more common ones were copper coffins and crystal coffins. There were also mysterious stone coffins. So when they saw Lin Feng rushing towards the coffin with bright eyes, the three elders couldn't help but roll their eyes. They thought to themselves, where did this country bumpkin come from? He was so excited to see a broken coffin. They really couldn't tell what was so special about this coffin. In reality, Lin Feng didn't see it either. No matter how he looked at it, it looked like it was made of ordinary wood. Furthermore, it seemed to have decayed a little. If the demon lord hadn't said that this was a treasure, Lin Feng definitely wouldn't have taken a second look at it. Lin Feng rushed to the front of the coffin and found that it was empty. Where's the elder devil's corpse? Lin Feng was puzzled. The three old men looked over and frowned. Ancient devil's body was not in the coffin. Had he not buried himself? Instead, he chose to pass away in meditation. If he passed away in meditation, his body and soul would be destroyed. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Nothing would be left behind. Many experts would choose to pass away in meditation when they died instead of leaving their corpses behind. This was also to prevent future cultivators from discovering their corpses. These experts' corpses were treasures in and of themselves. Once their corpses were discovered, they would either be dissected or refined into powerful external incarnations. They would even be taken away for research. To those top-notch experts, this was naturally a great humiliation. They were nobles when they were alive. They were humiliated after death. This was something that many experts couldn't accept. Therefore, Many experts chose to pass away in meditation when they died, letting their bodies turn into dust. When the three elders found that there was nothing else in the coffin, they no longer paid attention to it. Instead, they collected the treasures in the void. There were more than 10 treasures, all of which were very shocking. Although they didn't know what these treasures were, since they were treasures left behind by the giant devil, they were definitely extraordinary. The ghost elder was furious. He didn't want to lose a single treasure. The ghost elder had some powerful techniques. Although his lifespan was nearing its end and his strength was greatly reduced, some of his trump cards were still terrifying. The ghost elder took out a large handful of soybeans and threw them out. When those soybeans landed on the ground, they turned into a dense group of large men wearing armor and holding war spears. All of the large men charged towards the three elders. "You're courting death." The three elders roared angrily. Each of their palms could kill more than 10 people. However, there were too many of these large men wearing armor. Moreover, they weren't weak. If the three elders wanted to kill all of them, it wouldn't be that easy. The scene was chaotic. The rest of the people also began to snatch the treasures. Seeing the treasures being snatched away one by one, the three elders' faces turned ashen. At this time, Lin Feng put away the broken coffin. Loud, rumbling sounds could be heard. The 8 trigrams diagram at the top of the stone room suddenly rotated, attracting everyone's attention. Suddenly, the formation cores guarding the 8 trigrams diagram, Qian, Kuan, Zhen, Sun, Kenli, Zhen, and Dui, all emitted a dazzling light. Then, in the light, huge insects that blotted out the sky and covered the earth flew out. Those insects were each more than 20 meters long. They seemed to have been sealed in the 8 trigrams diagram before, but now they were released. Void God-Eater insects. Heavens, how can there be such huge Void God-Eater insects? When they saw those Void God-Eater insects, everyone turned pale with fright. Even terrifying existences, like the 3 Yin-Yang elders, had terrified expressions on their faces. The 3 elders managed to snatch 7 treasures, while the remaining treasures were taken by Lord Saber and the others. Originally, the 3 elders had planned to kill everyone and steal their divine abilities and treasures, but now, how could they be in the mood to do that? They immediately rushed out of the cave. "Go, go, go! Hurry up and leave!" shouted Lin Feng. His face was filled with fear. Those Void God-Eater insects might really be able to kill gods. If he didn't leave now, he would really die under the claws of these giant Void God-Eater bugs and become their food. The group of people rushed out of the stone room one after another. Loud, rumbling sounds could be heard. The door to the stone room was pushed open by a group of Void God-Eater insects. Next, the Void God-Eater insects chased after the group. "Scram!" shouted the 3 elders coldly. They slapped at Wang Xiaonan, who was running at the front. Lin Feng shook his head when he saw that. Wang Xiaonan was probably going to die. "Who are you telling to scram?" snorted Wang Xiaonan. She turned around and threw out a few hundred talismans. Those talismans were all high-grade talismans. Some of them were even saint-grade talismans. Lin Feng didn't have any, but Wang Xiaonan threw them out like trash. Who was this Wang Xiaonan to have so many high-grade talismans on her? The talismans exploded. Bang! The destructive power produced by the explosion of several hundred talismans was simply too terrifying. The Yin-Yang elders were blown away, each of them vomiting large mouthfuls of blood. Lin Feng and the others were blown dozens of meters away. The cave had completely collapsed, and they were trapped inside. Behind them, the gigantic empty space God-eating insects chased after them. That little girl tricked us. Lord Saber's face was gloomy. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. He had thought that Wang Xiaonan was naive and innocent, Who would have thought that she had been scheming against them all this time? Now, she had blown up the exit so that they could deal with the void god-eater insects, giving her time to escape. Chapter 1280. Even the Yin Yang elders had coughed up blood from the shockwaves from the explosion of several hundred high-grade talismans. From this, one could see just how powerful and terrifying those talismans were. Lin Feng had also been hit, but he was relatively far away, and his physical body was just too strong, so his injuries weren't too serious. However, the others weren't in the best situation. Apart from Lord Saber and Elder Gui, who were in relatively good condition, Wu Mu and Nailan Jirua had already been injured. As for Yu Liushi, she had also been injured by the shockwaves from the explosion. Her face was extremely pale. Disaster is upon us. Let's split up and run. Old Ghost let out a strange laugh as he chose a path to the left and charged into it. Lin Feng also chose a passage and quickly rushed over. He wanted to find a way out, but he discovered that many of the crisscrossing passages had collapsed due to the explosion of the talismans. Many of the possible exits had also been blocked. 7 or 8 huge void god-eater bugs were chasing after him. So Lin Feng had no choice but to quickly flee to another place. Wang Xiaonan, you win. Next time I see you, I'll definitely torture you 100 times. 100 times. You won't be able to get off the ground. Lin Feng couldn't help but think viciously. He shuttled back and forth through the crisscrossing passages, but he couldn't shake off the void god-eater bugs chasing after him, nor could he find a way out. This caused Lin Feng's expression to become increasingly gloomy. Help! When he passed by a fork in the road, Lin Feng saw Nailan Jirua. The void god-eater bugs were about to catch up to this icy woman. She was already injured, and now her injuries were even more serious. With her icy personality, she really wouldn't ask for help unless she had no other choice. Swish! The void god-eater bug chasing after her waved its huge claws, and a wave of void energy swept out. Bang! Immediately after, that wave of void energy slammed into Nailan Jirua's back. It directly sent Nailan Jirua flying several hundred meters. Nailan Jirua crashed heavily onto the ground and rolled 4 or 5 meters away. She didn't move at all. Was she dead or alive? Lin Feng rushed over and found that Nailan Jirua was still breathing. He hugged Nailan Jirua's small waist and held her in his arms. Then he quickly ran into the distance. Lin Feng ran all the way and ran through a dozen or so tunnels, but all the exits were blocked. In the end, he returned empty-handed. As Lin Feng passed by an intersection of tunnels, he saw Yu Liushi running over from the left. Currently, Yu Liushi's complexion was extremely pale. Clearly, like Lin Feng, she was unable to find a way to escape. There's no way out. That bitch Wang Xiaonan won't give us a way out. Yu Liushi's pretty face was ashen. The two of them gathered together and ran forward. The void god-eater bugs behind them also gathered together. More than 30 void god-eater bugs chased after them. Lin Feng asked, "What about the others? Did you see that?" Yu Liushi shook her head. Who knows where they ran off to? Maybe they've already been eaten by these monsters. Yu Liushi then said mockingly, "Wasn't that bitch intimate with you? What? Now she's even plotting against you. Her lover?" Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes and say, "Since when did I become intimate with her? Even I was bewitched by Wang Xiaonan. Although I never thought that she was such a simple person, I never thought that she would scheme against all of us. I have to admit that this woman is very powerful. Being able to scheme against us is also a kind of skill." Yu Liushi fell silent and didn't say anything else. She was so angry that she was about to explode and wanted nothing more than to strangle Wang Xiaonan to death. However, Yoshi had no choice but to admit that she had been tricked by Wang Xiaonan. The two of them looked through a few more tunnels that they had never been through before, but they still couldn't find a way out. I can't hold on much longer. I think you're about to reach your limit too, right? Let's just leave this woman behind. Yoshi said. She was naturally referring to Nailan Jirua. However, Lin Feng didn't leave her behind. Instead, he chose a passageway that led deeper and deeper into the city. You're already facing a disaster, yet you still want to bring along a burden? Should I say that you have tender feelings for the fairer sex? Or should I say that you're lustful? Yoshi looked at Lin Feng mockingly. Lin Feng said, "If it were you, I would save her too," eating from the bowl while looking at the pot. Yoshi pursed her lips. Lin Feng said, "Because for now, we're still companions who are training together. I'm not someone who abandons my companions." Yoshi's eyes rippled violently. She opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. In the world of cultivators, she had seen far too many people who could abandon family, love, and friendship for their own benefits. However, this was the first time she had seen someone like Lin Feng. "Companions sometimes scheme against you," Yoshi said. "That year, I joined an academy to cultivate. Everyone in my family was very happy. My uncle told me that when you're outside, there are many times when you have to choose to trust your companions because sometimes they can save your life." Lin Feng said. "Your uncle wasn't completely right, but he wasn't completely wrong either. Some companions can be trusted, while others need to be guarded against." Yoshi said. Lin Feng said, "That's why my uncle told me to make my own judgment about which companions I should trust and which I shouldn't. I feel that although Nailan Jirua is ice cold, she's a pretty good person." "It seems that you've taken your uncle's words as your life's creed. Is your uncle a very powerful person? Where is he? Could it be that he's also a famous expert?" Yoshi asked curiously. "He's a very ordinary person, but he's also a great person. He was killed while trying to save me." Lin Feng's voice was low. "I'm sorry for bringing up such a sad matter. Don't worry about it. Hey, this is the direction to the depths of the cave. Do you want to die?" At that moment, Yoshi, who had been following Lin Feng, realized that something was wrong. Lin Feng wasn't running outside. He was running deeper into the cave. "We're about to run out of fuel. Let's see if there's a way out in the depths that can save our lives," he said aloud. The dozens of void god-eater bugs were getting closer and closer. Lin Feng and Yoshi ran deeper into the cave. Their bodies were gradually becoming weaker, and the bugs were about to catch up. "I can't hold on any longer." Yoshi's face was pale. The void god-eating bugs were only less than 20 meters away from them. Lin Feng had also reached his limit. "There's a narrow cave up ahead. Let's hide in there." Lin Feng pointed ahead. The cave was very special. There was a powerful seal protecting the entire mountain, so the mountain was exceptionally sturdy. It was too difficult to shatter the mountain, unless one was like Wang Xiaonan and used hundreds of high-grade jade talismans to blast the mountain apart. Therefore, if they hid in the cave, it would be difficult for the void god-eater bugs to break into the cave. Screech! The bug at the front seemed to know what Lin Feng and Yoshi were planning, and it couldn't help but let out a piercing shriek. Then it jumped up and clawed at Lin Feng and Yoshi. "Oh no, we're dead." Yoshi's face was pale. Spatial bending. Lin Feng held Nailan Jirua in his right hand and Yoshi in his left. He used up the last of his spiritual energy to use spatial bending. His body turned into a blur as he charged into the cave. The bug's claws tore through Lin Feng's skin, and blood flowed out. If he had been a step slower, his body would have been torn in half by the bug's sharp claws. Lin Feng had narrowly avoided this life-or-death situation. After that, He hugged Yu Lu Shi and Nailan Jirua and rushed into the small and narrow cave. After entering the cave, he almost lost all his strength and laid on the ground. He felt a burning pain on his back, but he rejoiced incomparably in his heart as he had dodged in advance. If he had been a step slower, he might have been an ice-cold corpse by now. Chapter 1281. Screech. The furious roars of the void god-eater bugs came from outside. The one that had attacked Lin Feng earlier was blocking the cave entrance, its sharp claws reaching into the cave, but it couldn't touch Lin Feng, Yoshi, or Nailan Jirua. Asterisk bang bang bang. Asterisk next, the void god-eater bug attacked the cave again and again, trying to break out of it. But it failed every time. Although the cave was shaking, it was incomparably sturdy. The void god-eater bug couldn't break out in a short amount of time. The other void god-eater bugs left, leaving only one behind to block the exit. It seemed to be fighting Lin Feng's group of three. Lin Feng lay on the ground, gasping for breath. On his right was the unconscious Nailan Jirua, and on his left was Yoshi. Sniffing lightly, he could even smell the alluring body fragrance coming from Nailan Jirua and Yoshi. These two beauties were lying on Lin Feng's left and right, but Lin Feng didn't have any strange thoughts. He only had one feeling right now. He was tired. Both his body and mind had reached their limits in this continuous escape, causing Lin Feng to feel incomparably exhausted. Yoshi was obviously the same. The two of them quickly closed their eyes and fell asleep. Sleep was the best way to rest. When they woke up, the cave was pitch black. Lin Feng could feel Yoshi completely close to his chest, and he could even feel the heat of this beautiful woman's alluring body. Nailan Jirua's aura was much stronger than before. Yoshi's long eyelashes fluttered, as if she was a little embarrassed from sleeping in Lin Feng's arms for so long. Her pretty face reddened slightly. She sat up and looked outside, her expression becoming very unsightly. The void god-eater bugs are still blocking the way. It seems they don't plan on letting us leave. Lin Feng nodded solemnly. For the time being, he couldn't think of a way to leave. Do you think we'll die here? Yoshi asked. No, Lin Feng said. Why are you so confident? Yoshi asked. How can a mere void god-eater bug trap me to death? We'll definitely be able to find a way out. Lin Feng stroked his chin. Yoshi smiled bitterly. She didn't know where Lin Feng found such courage at this time. Lin Feng leaned against the rock wall, thinking of a way to deal with it. Yoshi sat beside Lin Feng. In the darkness, the two of them could even hear each other's breathing and heartbeat. Who are you? Yoshi asked. Why do you ask? Lin Feng said indifferently, because I feel that the situation is different now. We can ask and treat it as chatting. Yoshi said. It was obvious that Yoshi felt that the chances of escaping were not very high, so she could ask about some topics that were more taboo in the past. Yoshi was rather curious about Lin Feng's identity because she realized that despite his young age, Lin Feng was not only powerful, but he also had an incomparable understanding of spirit formations. She had never heard of such a genius before. This meant the name Lin Qing should be an alias. I am Lin Feng. Yoshi's pink lips parted slightly, and she seemed very surprised. She then said, Actually, I should have guessed that you were that person long ago. There are very few people who are so proficient in spirit formations at such a young age, and Lin Feng seems to be the only one in his 20s. Lin Feng asked, And who are you? I am. Yoshi giggled. Yoshi giggled. She was truly amorous. She didn't say anything else. Obviously, she was deliberately hiding her identity, so Lin Feng didn't bother to ask any more questions. 2 hours later, Nailan Jirua, who had been unconscious all this time, woke up. In the darkness, she saw Lin Feng and Yoshi and let out a small sigh of relief. "Thank you." Nailan Jirua looked at Lin Feng. Nailan Jirua had no recollection of what had happened after she had been struck by the void god-eater bug, but she could guess that if it hadn't been for Lin Feng, she would have become food in the void god-eater bug's stomach. "It's a small matter. Rest well and don't move too much," Lin Feng said. Nailan Jirua nodded and sat up, circulating her cultivation technique to heal her injuries. Lin Feng's group had been trapped for a very long time without being able to escape, and this made them somewhat anxious. When the cave brightened a little, Lin Feng suddenly discovered that there was something different about this cave. "What's that?" He quickly stood up and looked at a protruding part of the cave. "What did you discover?" Nailan Jirua and Yoshi looked at Lin Feng and asked. They felt that Lin Feng must have discovered something. "This cave has an irregular oval shape, and there's a huge protrusion here. It looks like a huge head protruding out," Lin Feng said as he pointed at the protrusion. Nailan Jirua asked doubtfully, "What does that mean?" Lin Feng said, "In feng shui, this is called a dragon's tail connecting, and a true dragon spitting out a pearl. The word pearl has several meanings, and one of them represents water. If my guess is correct, there should be an underground river below the center of the cave." After hearing Lin Feng's words, Nailan Jirua and Yoshi's eyes suddenly lit up. If it really was an underground river, then they could break out of here and leave along the river. "Then let's dig here," Yoshi said. Lin Feng nodded. The rocks here were abnormally hard, and digging was very difficult. Fortunately, it wasn't impossible to dig. Lin Feng and the others dug a 4 to 5 meter deep hole. At this time, water began to flow out. "We really dug to the underground river." The three of them were pleasantly surprised, and they sped up. Before long, they had dug through the underground river. "Let's go down and take a look," Lin Feng said as he took the lead and jumped down, diving into the river. Yoshi and Nailan Jirua jumped in as well. The underground river was very deep, and the water flowed rapidly. Lin Feng and the others swam in the direction of the current. Normally, if one followed the direction of the current, the underground river would eventually rush out of the ground, and it was very likely to connect to the rivers, lakes, and so on outside. After an hour, Lin Feng and the two others arrived at a gigantic stone palace. Their eyes widened. There was actually a hall under the underground river. This was really too shocking. They swam towards the stone hall, but when they arrived, their eyes were filled with incomparable terror. Within the stone hall, there was a huge grayish-brown creature. Its huge body was coiled together, and its entire body was covered in scales. At this moment, it was sleeping on the ground. It was actually a terrifying flood dragon. The three of them hurriedly swam into the distance, afraid that they would disturb the flood dragon. Swish, swish. But at this moment, the flood dragon opened its cold eyes. An ancient and terrifying aura was emitted from the flood dragon's body. Chapter 1282. Not good. That flood dragon is awake. Let's go. Lin Feng shouted. Yoshi and Nailan Jirua turned pale with fright. The aura emanating from the flood dragon in the stone temple was too terrifying. It was suffocating. It was hard to imagine how long this terrifying creature had lived for. Lin Feng and the others didn't even have the courage to fight such a powerful flood dragon. Staying behind to fight was no different from throwing their lives away. They increased their speed and swam forward, hoping to leave the underground river as soon as possible. Asterisk, rumble, asterisk. At this moment, the entire underground river began to tremble violently. The massive flood dragon moved. Its enormous body swam out of the stone temple. A terrifying aura emanated from the flood dragon's body. It was as if an ancient demon god had awakened. Damn, why is there such a terrifying creature in this underground river? Lin Feng was quite depressed. The flood dragon charged out of the stone temple. Its body was too huge, and it coiled in the water like a mountain range. Its dark brown scales flickered with a cold luster, and its cold eyes stared at the three fleeing humans. The flood dragon was over 3,000 meters long. With such a huge body, it was unknown how many tens of thousands of years it had cultivated for. The lifespan of humans was relatively short. For ordinary people, 70 or 80 years was the age when they reached the end of their lifespan. That was why people said that it was rare to reach 70 years old. Some Yao demons and other races had extremely long lifespans. They could live up to 1,000 years without cultivating. If they cultivated, their lifespan would continuously increase. That was why the lifespan of wild beasts far exceeded that of humans. It was normal to see wild beasts that had lived for tens of thousands of years or even hundreds of thousands of years. Asterisk rumble, asterisk terrifying auras emanated from behind them. The gigantic flood dragon spat out a ball of energy, which immediately moved towards Lin Feng and the two others. Hurry up and dodge. Lin Feng shouted. The three of them hurriedly dodged the ball of energy, but they were still sent flying by the shock waves. Lin Feng's face was pale. That attack just now had caused him quite a bit of damage. Yu Liushi and Nalin Jirua's situation was even worse. The two of them coughed up 3 mouthfuls of blood, their complexions extremely pale. At this moment, the flood dragon sped up and chased after them. What talismans and Dao weapons do you have? Throw them all out and kill it. Lin Feng's face was filled with ferocity. Now, it was the time that could not be delayed. If they could not defeat the flood dragon, the three of them would most likely die here. Therefore, now was not the time to lament over those treasures. Lin Feng took out hundreds of jade talismans and dozens of Dao artifacts, and threw them all at the flood dragon. These jade talismans were all magic talismans that he had drawn himself. Although their grades weren't as high as the magic talismans Wang Xiaonan had used back then, there were still quite a few heaven-grade magic talismans. Moreover, there were so many of them that once they exploded, the power would still be very strong. Coupled with the explosion of the Dao artifact, the energy generated would be even more powerful. Yu Liushi and Nalin Jiru also had many treasures on them. They also took out some magic talismans. Yu Liushi and Nalin Jiru clearly had extraordinary backgrounds. Among the magic talismans they took out, there was a saint-grade magic talisman. Saint-grade magic talismans were naturally even more powerful and terrifying. Apart from the magic talismans, the two of them also took out a dozen Dao artifacts. They were probably treasures they had obtained during their training. Boom, all the magic talismans and Dao artifacts exploded. With so much energy, the destructive power generated by the explosion of the magic talismans was unimaginable. The entire subterranean river shook, and many parts of the river even began to collapse. Roar! But at this moment, the flood dragon's furious roar came from the center of the explosion. The flood dragon charged out from the center of the explosion. What was even more unbelievable was that the flood dragon had not been injured at all. How could this be? Lin Feng, Yu Liushi, and Nalin Jiru were all shocked. Just now, so many magic talismans and Dao artifacts had exploded together. The Yin-Yang elders were existences close to gods. They could have been killed by the explosion, but the flood dragon was completely fine. Just how powerful was its cultivation to be able to accomplish this? This was simply unheard of. However, although the exploding magic talismans and Tao artifacts had not been able to injure the flood dragon. It had been thoroughly enraged. After charging out from the center of the explosion, the flood dragon's enormous claws suddenly slammed into the water. Next, a flood dragon condensed from the water of the subterranean river instantly charged towards Lin Feng, Yulioshi, and Nalan Jirua. Bang! The flood dragon condensed from the water of the subterranean river slammed into Lin Feng and the others. The three of them were sent flying, falling to the bottom of the subterranean river. Their faces grew increasingly pale, and they couldn't help but cough up blood. The flood dragon quickly swam over, but at this moment, an even faster figure charged towards Lin Feng, Yulioshi, and Nalan Jirua from the left branch of the subterranean river. The creature was much smaller than the flood dragon. It was about 500 meters long. Its head was like a frog, and its body was like a skinless crocodile. It was more than 10 meters long. Heavens! It's an overlord salamander. When they saw this creature, Lin Feng and the others revealed astonished expressions. The overlord salamander's origins were simply too great. It was said that at the beginning of the world, the overlord salamander was one of the first divine beasts to be born. This was a terrifying creature that had appeared at the same time as the true dragon, phoenix, qilin, white tiger, and other divine beasts. Countless years had passed since then. There were no longer any overlord salamanders in the outside world. Many people thought that this ancient race of divine beasts had already gone extinct. Who would have thought that an overlord salamander would appear here? The overlord salamander opened its bloody mouth and charged towards Lin Feng and the others. This completely enraged the flood dragon. The flood dragon's roar shook the heavens, and it spat out a ball of energy that was several hundred meters wide, smashing towards the overlord salamander. The ball of energy directly sent the overlord salamander flying. The overlord salamander's scales exploded, dripping with blood. After being injured, the overlord salamander went completely berserk. It didn't even care about Lin Feng and the others. Instead, it charged towards the flood dragon. As one of the first divine beasts in the world, the overlord salamander was naturally extremely terrifying. Its huge head directly slammed into the flood dragon's body, sending it flying. The flood dragon's scales fell off in large amounts, and its blood instantly flowed out. The overlord salamander opened its mouth and bit at the flood dragon's neck, wanting to bite it to death. However, the flood dragon's strength was unfathomable, and its reaction was extremely fast. Its thick tail lashed out, and the flood dragon directly sent the overlord salamander flying. The two behemoths fought fiercely, causing the entire underground river to shake and the ground to cave in. Lin Feng, Yulioshi, and Nalan Jirua hurriedly fled while the flood dragon and the overlord salamander were fighting to the death. Author's note: I'm going to take the first test. The updates will be in the afternoon and evening. I hope I can pass. I hope you can vote for me next month. Chapter 1283. In the forest, there were steep mountains, and a waterfall fell from the sky. Below it was a huge pool, and the waterfall fell into the pool. 3 heads popped out of the pool, and they were Lin Feng, Yulioshi, and Nalan Jirua. The 3 of them had successfully come out of the underground river, and it could be said that they had experienced many dangers and narrowly escaped death. After reaching the shore, the 3 of them couldn't help but lie down on the cobblestone shore and gasp for breath. It's good to be alive. Lin Feng took a deep breath. At this moment, he turned to look at Yulioshi and Nalan Jirua. The 2 of them were completely drenched, and their thin clothes couldn't hide the boundless beauty of their beautiful bodies. Their exquisite bodies were now completely exposed to Lin Feng. Sensing Lin Feng's gradually burning gaze, The two of them looked down and immediately screamed. They hurriedly covered their important parts with their hands, and their faces were pink. They couldn't help but spit at Lin Feng, then turned and ran behind a nearby tree to change their clothes. By the time they finished changing and came out, Lin Feng had already disappeared. Where did he go? Nalin Giroux frowned slightly. He should have left, Yuliyoshi said. She couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. Even she didn't know why she felt this way. Nalin Giroux nodded. She didn't continue to stay here, nor did she have any plans to stay with Yuliyoshi. She chose a direction and flew off into the distance. In a cave 10 kilometers away, Lin Feng took out the broken coffin. He walked around it a few times, but he couldn't see what was so special about it. However, since the demon lord said that it was a supreme treasure, he definitely wouldn't speak without thinking. Lin Feng said, "Demon lord, what kind of treasure is this coffin? It seems to have decayed a little." The demon lord said, 3 lives, 3 worlds, just to protect you by your side. There's a poignant love story here. Lin Feng stroked his chin and asked, "What story?" Rumor has it that countless years ago, gods and demons were at odds with each other. A goddess from the gods and demons fell in love with each other, but the two races couldn't tolerate it. That was how the tragedy began. The demon lord told Lin Feng the story of the legend. They wanted to leave, but the god and demon races were chasing after them. After a series of bloody battles, they were trapped. In order to save her lover, the goddess used a dagger to pierce her own heart. Only then did the god and demon races stop chasing after them. The love between the gods and the demons ended. The demon monarch was deeply in love, and he searched the entire world. In the legendary Netherworld, he found an ancient tree in front of the 3 lives stone. According to legends, it was the tree of reincarnation. He used it to make a coffin and preserve the corpse. After 3 lives and 3 lives, the dead would return to life. Isn't this too ridiculous? Lin Feng was in disbelief. The demon lord's words sounded like a story to him. The demon lord said, "There are many rumors. If you believe them, they're true. If you don't, they're false. I'm not sure if you'll be able to return to life after 3 lives and 3 lives, but there's one thing I'm sure of. The 3 lives coffin can preserve a corpse and never decay. Even if a living dead person is placed inside, they won't die. Everything will be frozen in the moment they're placed inside. And even after millions and millions of years, they'll still be able to live on until the day they wake up." Lin Feng gasped. "There's actually such a coffin in this world? That's too unbelievable. If I were to sleep inside, would I be able to pass through millions and millions of years and become immortal? Would I be able to wake up after millions and millions of years?" The demon lord said, "Perhaps it's possible. In the past, even the ancient emperors were looking for the 3 lives coffin in hopes of burying themselves inside and waking up in the future." Lin Feng's heart trembled. If what the demon lord said was true, then the 3 lives coffin was too shocking. Lin Feng put the coffin away. Although he had no use for it now, he might need it in the future. He then sat down cross-legged to heal his injuries and adjust his state of mind. 6 hours later, Lin Feng had completely recovered. He continued walking towards the depths of the demon-sealed land. Lin Feng's main goal in coming here was to find the origin Dao fruit for the fire Qilin. Unfortunately, he hadn't been able to find anything in the demon-sealed land. "Demon Lord, where do you think the origin Dao fruit might appear?" Lin Feng asked. The demon lord sat on a lonely grave in a daze, just like he always did. He often sat on a lonely grave, trying to recall his lost memories. It's hard to say, but if such a treasure really exists, then it's most likely in the depths of the demon-sealed land. The higher the grade of a spirit herb, the more instinctive it is to avoid danger. The demon lord explained. That night, Lin Feng was leaning against a big tree and had a rest. Suddenly, he sensed an extremely cold qi permeating the atmosphere of the forest. Lin Feng woke up with a start. He restrained his aura and cautiously looked around. That night wasn't peaceful. Many cultivators had died tragically in the forest. Their flesh and blood had been sucked dry, leaving behind only human skin. The next day, Lin Feng felt his scalp go numb when he saw those human skins. What is this thing? Lin Feng's voice was grave. It was too terrifying, and it made his hair stand on end. I'm afraid something has happened in the demon-sealed land. The demon lord sat on a lonely grave and said, Something has happened. Could it be related to the 9 demons painting? He thought of a possibility. The 9 demons painting has appeared and broken the restrictions. It will cause some terrible things, the demon lord muttered. At noon, the 9 demons painting appeared again. It flew in the depths of the demon-sealed land, emitting a boundless demonic aura. Countless people looked at the 9 demons painting excitedly. Even if it was divided into 9 parts, it was still comparable to a great emperor's weapon. If they could obtain the first 9 demons painting, they could rely on the connection between the 9 demons paintings to obtain more of them. If they could gather all of the 9 demons paintings, it would be heaven-defying. It was the second-ranked great emperor's weapon. 3 days later, Lin Feng arrived at a swamp. If he wanted to go deeper, he would have to pass through the swamp. Many cultivators were waiting outside. They didn't enter the swamp rashly because it was too dangerous. Not only was there a poisonous miasma in the swamp, but there were also terrifying, vicious beasts hiding in the depths of the swamp. This made many people feel apprehensive. In the end, about 1,000 cultivators gathered. They planned to set off together and pass through the swamp. However, they hadn't set off yet. They were waiting for a few important people. There will be experts from the Geomasters and a princess from the Great Shang Empire. Someone said, the people who were coming were not simple. Chapter 1284. An expert from the Yinyang sect has also arrived. It's Duan Mujin, the crown prince of the Great Qin Empire. Ying Dongfang is also coming. Another cultivator said. Many people were waiting for them. The 4 people who were about to arrive had extraordinary statuses. Although they had only cultivated for 1,000 years, they had all broken through to the rebirth realm. They could be considered outstanding representatives of the middle generation. Lin Feng stood in the distance. He didn't show off. Now, Lin Feng had turned into a scholarly cultivator. His transformation technique was very wondrous. No one could see any clues. In the distance, immortal light lingered. More than 10 figures flew over and landed. The leader was a woman wearing a white palace dress. Her face was covered, so no one could see what she looked like. However, her figure was graceful and moving. It was obvious that she was a top-grade beauty. The Great Shang Empire's first princess Qian Anji, a cultivator, immediately cried out. Princess Qian Anji could be called a goddess in the central continent. She was one of the 10 great beauties of the central continent. Moreover, she was the first princess of the Great Shang Empire. Who knew how many suitors she had? However, Qian Anji had never had any scandals with any man. She had always kept herself clean. It was rumored that in the past, several heirs of top ancient families had proposed marriage to the Great Shang Empire. However, they had all been rejected by her. Qian Anji had once said that only a man who ruled the world had the right to marry her. The Tianwu continent was divided. How could anyone rule the world? Therefore, Qian Anji meant that she wouldn't marry anyone. There were also rumors that she didn't want to marry because she wanted to become an empress. One had to know that if Qian Anji married, she would lose her status as the first princess. There was a saying that a married woman was like spilled water. This was what it meant. However, if Qiananji didn't marry, she would still be the first princess of the Great Shang Empire. She had the right to inherit the throne like the other princes and princesses. However, as a woman, although she had the right to inherit the throne, it was clearly much more difficult for her to become the first princess than her brothers. Qiananji's only advantage was that her brothers didn't live up to expectations. Not a single one of them was successful. They were even inferior to some of the prince's children. Therefore, Anji still had a chance. Not long after Gananji's group arrived, the second wave of cultivators arrived. There were about 20 of them, and they were led by a cultivator who looked to be around 30 years old. Geomaster lineage, Xue Muyang. Many people were shocked. Clearly, they didn't expect the expert of the Geomaster faction to be this person. This Xue Muyang had cultivated for 1,400 years and had broken through to the rebirth realm for more than 100 years. In addition, he was the successor of the Geomaster faction. His methods were heaven-defying, and he was highly regarded by the ancestors of the Geomaster faction. In the future, he might be able to wield great authority in the Geomaster faction. After Xue Muyang arrived, the cultivators from the Yinyang sect and the Great Qin Empire also arrived. Duan Mujin's status in the Yinyang cult was frighteningly high. His ancestor was one of the Yinyang Three Elders. As for Duan Mujin, he had only cultivated for 1,100 years and was also at the rebirth realm. The crown prince of the Great Qin Empire, Ying Dongfang, was the nephew of the human emperor of the Great Qin Empire. His status was honorable. Experts from all directions arrived. These people all knew each other and greeted each other. Then, more than 1,000 people entered the swamp. With so many experts gathered together, they created quite a commotion. Ordinary beasts wouldn't dare to come out. Thus, the journey was more daunting than dangerous. 3 days later, the group passed through a mountain forest in the swamp. The miasma in the forest was extremely dense. As they flew through the forest, they could hear miserable cries from time to time. Following this, cultivators fell from the sky one after another. The miasma here is strange. It's undead miasma. There must be corroding corpses down there. Let's leave this place quickly, Lin Feng said in a low voice. Oh, undead miasma? After hearing Lin Feng's words, and she looked at Lin Feng in surprise and said, such a powerful undead miasma. Does that mean that the corpses down, they're very powerful? Lin Feng frowned slightly. He guessed that Anji wanted to dig up the corpses down there, but that wasn't what Lin Feng wanted to see. He just wanted to leave this place and find the origin Dao fruit as soon as possible. Kid, I'm asking you a question. Didn't you hear me? Xue Muyang looked coldly at Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, only rotting corpses produce poisonous, undead miasma. So what if it's powerful? It's worthless. Xue Muyang said, of course it'll be useful if we dig it up. Who knows, we might even obtain some shocking inheritances. Go down and dig. Many cultivators shouted excitedly. Even the cultivators from the 4 great powers were participating. Lin Feng said coldly, it's easy for strange things to happen in a place like this. I advise everyone to stop before something terrible happens. If you're not going to dig, then get lost. Don't get in the way of others. Xue Muyang said coldly. You. Lin Feng's expression turned gloomy. He wanted to retort, but a middle-aged cultivator pulled him back. Little brother, calm down. There's no need to argue with Xue Muyang. We can't afford to offend someone like him. The middle-aged cultivator said. Lin Feng nodded gloomily. He felt that this swamp was not simple, which was why he had come with so many cultivators. Now was not the time to fall out with Xue Muyang. Lin Feng flew into the distance. He flew more than 1,000 meters away and watched from afar. "Dad, should we go dig as well?" A young cultivator looked at the middle-aged man. "That's right, Uncle. If we don't dig now, all the good stuff will be taken away by others." Another young cultivator chimed in. This group of more than 10 people came from a small clan. The middle-aged cultivator was at the 8th heavenly layer of the creation realm. He wasn't particularly strong. These people had taken the risk to come here because they wanted to find an extremely important spirit herb. The ancestor of their clan had been poisoned by fire and needed that spirit herb to save his life. "We're only here to find the ice god grass. We won't fight for the other treasures," the middle-aged cultivators said. All right. Although the young cultivators were unwilling, they could only nod. They didn't dare to go against the middle-aged man's words. They flew to Lin Feng's side and introduced themselves. Lin Feng knew that the middle-aged cultivator was called Wu Yong. Lin Feng introduced himself as Lin Qing. "I found a corpse with a storage ring." "There's a storage ring." "I found one too. There are so many corpses with storage rings." Many people shouted in surprise. They stretched out their hands and tried to take the storage rings off the rotten corpses. But at that moment, the corpses that had been dead for an unknown number of years opened their eyes at the same time. "Pooh! Pooh!" The corpses stretched out their sharp claws and instantly pierced the chests of many cultivators. Ah! Many people screamed, miserably. They saw the corpses dig out their hearts. "How can this be?" Many cultivators cried out in disbelief. Then they breathed their last and died on the spot. Chapter 1285. It's a zombie. All the corpses here have turned into zombies. Hurry up and leave. Many cultivators cried out in fear and quickly fled into the distance. Fortunately, we didn't dig up those corpses. The cultivators beside Wu Yong all had expressions of joy on their faces. Now, they all felt that Lin Feng was not a simple person. Previously, it was Lin Feng who reminded everyone not to dig up those corpses because Lin Feng was worried that there might be an uncontrollable danger. Now, such a thing had really happened. Zombie, it was formed by the evil thoughts of a corpse that awakened after its death. The zombie was invulnerable, and its entire body was covered in poison. It was extremely terrifying. Lin Feng and the others took the lead and flew into the distance. The rest of the cultivators also hurriedly fled into the distance. If there were only a few or a dozen zombies here, everyone would be able to deal with them. However, there were simply too many zombies here. There were probably hundreds of them. Lin Feng had seen zombies before, but at most, he had only seen one. When had he ever seen such a situation? With hundreds of zombies, anyone who was trapped by these zombies would only die. Many cultivators were killed in the process of escaping. In the end, more than 200 people died before everyone managed to escape the pursuit of the zombies. "Bring that brat over here," Xue Muyang said in a deep voice. "Come with us," Xue Muyang's guards said coldly as they came to Lin Feng. Lin Feng frowned, but he did not say anything and followed the guards to Xue Muyang. "Brat, since you know that there is undead miasma and that digging up the corpses there might be danger, do you also know that there might be zombies down there? Didn't you say that you deliberately tricked us?" Xue Muyang stretched out his hand and pointed at Lin Feng's head. However, Lin Feng dodged. "You still dare to dodge. Do you believe that I won't slap you?" Xue Muyang looked at Lin Feng indifferently. He was a high and mighty figure to begin with, so he naturally did not put Lin Feng, a cultivator in his 20s, in his eyes. Xue Muyang raised his right hand, wanting to slap Lin Feng. At this moment, Ran Anji said, "Wait." Xue Muyang looked at Princess Anji and frowned slightly. Princess Anji, why are you stopping me from teaching this brat a lesson? See, Anji replied, we can't blame him for this. He warned us that there might be danger below, but we were too confident and didn't listen to him. Let him go. Xue Muyang's expression didn't look good. He was a conceited person and didn't want to admit his mistakes. He wanted to push all the blame onto Lin Feng. However, Si Anji had taken responsibility for the previous mistake. Xue Muyang couldn't refute Si Anji. He was incomparably fearful of Si Anji. He also knew that he could only befriend Si Anji and not make enemies. He nodded, then looked at Lin Feng and said, Princess Anji is pleading for you, so you can leave now. Lin Feng gave Xue Muyang a deep look before turning around and leaving. Young hero Lin, are you all right? Wu Yong asked worriedly as he looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng shook his head and said, I'm fine. Wu Yong said, many times doing the right thing won't necessarily earn you the gratitude of others. That's why doing nothing is the best way to protect yourself. Thank you for your advice. Lin Feng cupped his fists. Wu Yong said, just some experience in dealing with people. You're still young and have a long way to go. You're also quite talented, so you'll definitely be able to stand out in the future. There's no need to get into conflict with those people. Lin Feng nodded and didn't say anything else. The group continued on their journey. The swamp was too dangerous. And the next day, the group encountered another terrifying danger. Blood-red centipedes that were nearly 100 meters long crawled out of the swamp. These blood-red centipedes had wings, and when they flapped their wings, they were as fast as lightning and charged towards the group of cultivators. It's the flying blood centipedes. Many people cried out in fear when they saw the blood-red centipedes and fled into the distance. Chi, chi. However, there were too many flying blood centipedes, and many cultivators had their bodies torn apart by the centipedes. They died horribly. Everyone frantically fled into the distance. People were constantly being killed. The crowd was also scattered. Many people died at the hands of the flying blood centipedes. In the end, only about 400 people managed to escape from the flying blood centipedes. They were lucky enough to escape with their lives. We're almost out. Someone pointed into the distance. There were continuous mountains and lush greenery, and it was completely different from the muddy swamp. Everyone's spirits were lifted, and they sped up as they rushed out of the swamp. However, at that moment, an endless black fog rolled above the swamp. The black fog condensed into a huge head. In the end, the head turned into an extremely ugly human face. Lowly ants, none of you will be able to escape. Play a game with me, the ugly face said in a sinister voice. What's that? Many people cried out in horror. Their faces were filled with horror. In the next moment, the ugly face swallowed everyone in one gulp. Lin Feng felt his vision blur, and he was no longer in the swamp. Instead, he found himself in a space covered in gray fog. Is this an independent spatial barrier formed by the laws of space? Lin Feng was shocked. He guessed that everyone had been sucked into this independent space by that mysterious existence. The spatial node of this independent space must be connected to the swamp world. This place of sealed demons is too strange. There's actually an independent space here. It's said that a god's body can form a space. Could it be that after the god died, the space within his body wasn't destroyed and was scattered between heaven and earth? Could it have been connected to the swamp by chance? Lin Feng couldn't help but wonder. But who's the owner of that ugly face? Lin Feng's expression turned grave. The owner of that ugly face was definitely not simple. Demon Lord, what do you think? Lin Feng transmitted his voice to the Demon Lord, but he didn't get a response from the Demon Lord. His expression changed slightly. This space was very strange. It had actually severed his connection with the demon lord. Lin Feng took a deep breath and carefully walked towards the depths of the space. Crack, crack! Suddenly, Lin Feng heard a clear and melodious voice. He looked down and found that he had broken a few bones. Someone came here before and died here, said Lin Feng. Lin Feng frowned. Ah! Miserable screams came from up ahead. He quickly ran over and found that a dozen skeletons had surrounded 3 cultivators. Their sharp bone blades had pierced through the 3 cultivators' chests, killing them. The green flames in the skeletons' eye sockets flickered violently. The skeletons opened their mouths and inhaled. Clouds of grayish-brown gas escaped from the dead cultivators' heads. That was the soul energy of the dead cultivators, which had been absorbed by the skeletons. Chapter 1286. Crack, crack! The skeletons turned their heads and looked in Lin Feng's direction. They found me. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly, and he turned around and ran away. The skeletons chased closely behind him. They were extremely terrifying, and they were extremely fast. Even with Lin Feng's astonishing speed, he couldn't shake them off in a short amount of time. After more than 2 hours, he finally got rid of the group of skeletal creatures. Lin Feng sat on a smooth rock to rest. This space is too strange. I wonder how the others are doing. I can't contact the demon lord, and I don't know how to get out. Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. Whoa! Suddenly, the sound of weeping drifted over from afar in the breeze. Lin Feng frowned. Why was there weeping? What was this weeping? Who was it? He carefully walked in the direction of the weeping. More than 10 cultivators appeared in front of him, and they were walking together. Like Lin Feng, they had probably heard the weeping and were walking in the direction of the weeping. Lin Feng didn't disturb them, and he followed behind them. Finally, they came to the side of a lake. More than 10 corpses of cultivators were lying next to the lake. A woman was crying softly with her back facing everyone. Her voice was very sorrowful, and her shoulders were slightly trembling. She didn't know who had died, but she was crying as if her liver and intestines had been cut into pieces. From the back, the woman's figure was very hot, and one could even see her towering peaks from the side. Any man who saw those alluring curves would probably be tempted. Let's go and take a look, the cultivators said as they walked towards the woman. Fairy, is there anything we can help you with? One of the cultivators asked. The woman suddenly stopped crying. At that moment, Lin Feng saw a terrifying scene. One by one, the cultivators fell to the ground. Then, a gray gas floated out of their minds. It was the soul power of the cultivators. A female ghost. Lin Feng was horrified. This space was too strange. There were zombie demons, skeletal creatures, and female ghosts. The creatures here seemed to have a special liking for souls. They were all devouring soul power. Lin Feng didn't dare to stay, and quickly flew off into the distance. However, at this moment, he felt a chill run down his spine. It was as if some terrifying creature had chased after him. Lin Feng even felt that the terrifying creature was right beside him. If he turned his head, he would be able to see her. Female ghost, Lin Feng was horrified. He felt as if his consciousness was about to fall into an endless darkness. His legs went soft, and he almost fell to the ground like the other cultivators by the lake. Get away from me. Lin Feng fiercely bit his own tongue. His tongue was bleeding. The pain made Lin Feng feel a lot more awake. Then Lin Feng took out the Sarira and Bodhi seed. He held the Sarira in his left hand and the Bodhi bead in his right. The 2 magic treasures released a Buddhist light that protected Lin Feng. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt that the cold aura that enveloped his body was dissipating bit by bit. Did I leave? Lin Feng let out a long breath, but he didn't dare to turn his head. He ran for more than 10 miles before sitting on the ground, panting violently. This place was too dangerous. The slightest carelessness could cost him his life. Big Brother Lin, run. There's a soul catcher. More than 10 cultivators flew over. One of them saw Lin Feng and shouted loudly. That cultivator was Uncle Wu Yong's nephew, Wu Jiong. Lin Feng didn't know the people beside Wu Jiong. Wu Jiong should have been separated from Uncle Wu Yong and the others and formed a temporary team with those cultivators. Lin Feng got up from the ground and didn't dare to stay for a moment. He quickly ran into the distance. He had heard of soul catchers before. They were extremely terrifying creatures that specialized in absorbing the souls of living beings. Previously, whether it was the zombie, the skeletal creature, or the mysterious female ghost, they all needed to kill a person first before devouring their soul. But soul catchers were different. Soul catchers could devour the souls of living beings. In the sky, black-robed existences flew over. They were so fast that they quickly caught up with everyone. Screams rang out one after another. More than 10 cultivators' souls were instantly devoured by the soul catchers. Wu Jiong also died tragically under the attacks of the soul catchers. Lin Feng's situation wasn't any better. More than 10 soul catchers surrounded Lin Feng, trying to absorb Lin Feng's soul. Primal Chaos Ancient Lamp suppresses the soul. Lin Feng's soul hid in the Primal Chaos Ancient Lamp, temporarily blocking the attacks of the soul catchers. But these soul catchers were too terrifying. The remaining 20 or so soul catchers also flew over and tried to absorb Lin Feng's soul together. After being attacked by more than 30 soul catchers, Lin Feng couldn't hold on any longer. He felt like his soul was about to split open. The soul hidden in the Primal Chaos Ancient Lamp would be forcefully sucked out by the soul catchers at any time. At this critical moment, a cold aura suddenly spread between heaven and earth. In the distance, the flesh and blood of the corpses instantly disappeared and turned into human skins. Screech, the soul catchers let out terrified cries and ran away as fast as lightning. They didn't even care about Lin Feng and ran away madly. It's exactly the same as what happened in the forest. The corpses have turned into human skins. Lin Feng felt his scalp go numb. He turned around and ran, but he vaguely felt that something was following him. This made Lin Feng's expression extremely ugly. Could it be that the strange thing that turned the corpses into human skins was following him? Did that thing also want to devour him? Lin Feng's face was as pale as paper. He pushed his speed to the limit and ran for 3 days and 3 nights. On the way, Lin Feng encountered some soul catchers, but they quickly ran away when they saw him. Why did the soul catchers that wanted to devour my soul run away when they saw me? Lin Feng didn't understand. Could it be? He thought of a certain possibility and felt his scalp go numb. Was it that thing? Was it still there? Was it right next to him? Lin Feng wanted to cry, but had no tears. He clearly felt like he had shaken it off. He looked around, but didn't see anything. He spread out his divine will and found nothing. Then he opened his snake eye and didn't see anything. He took out the Saraira and the Bodhi seed, the 2 Buddhist treasures. The 2 Buddhist treasures didn't react at all. Only then did Lin Feng let out a long breath. Although he didn't know why the soul catchers had run away when they saw him, Lin Feng felt that he hadn't found any clues even after using so many methods to search for that strange creature. That strange creature should have left by now, right? Perhaps it was because he had a trace of that strange creature's aura on him that the soul catchers had run away. Lin Feng didn't dare to stay. He continued walking deeper into the forest. A day later, he saw a white world in front of him. When he saw the white world, Lin Feng's face turned pale. It was a world of bones. At first glance, it seemed to be a boundless world of bones. Chapter 1287. Why are there so many skeletons? How many living beings have died here? How did such a huge world of skeletons form? Looking at the boundless world of skeletons, Lin Feng's face was filled with shock. The scene in front of him was too shocking. Anyone who saw that world of skeletons would probably feel their scalp go numb. Lin Feng carefully entered the world of skeletons. Cracking sounds could be heard from time to time. The skeletons here had long decayed and would shatter with a single step. Golden skeletons. Lin Feng saw a pile of skeletons more than 10 meters tall. He didn't know what kind of skeletons they belonged to. Golden skeletons. Such skeletons were very rare. The owner of the skeletons was probably an extremely powerful existence when he was alive. But now, even the skeletons were about to decay. Time was enough to bury everything. Time was enough to destroy everything. It didn't matter if it was a peerless expert or a beautiful woman with a heavenly fragrance. Who could resist the corrosion of time? They were destined to be devoured by the river of time. A gale swept up in the sea of skeletons. Bone dust filled the air. Many of the skeletons had already turned into powder. When the wind blew, it was like a sandstorm. Cough, cough, cough. Lin Feng choked and kept coughing. A hurricane swept in his direction. Many skeletons were swept up by the hurricane and were instantly crushed into powder. Lin Feng took out the hurricane pearl. When the hurricane swept over, he wasn't swept away. Instead, he stood there without moving. The hurricane pearl could resist all kinds of storms. Swoosh! Suddenly, Lin Feng felt a chill on his back. A skeletal creature appeared, holding a bone blade, and slashed at Lin Feng's head. The situation was very dangerous. Lin Feng's reaction was fast enough. When he felt the chill from behind, he moved to the left. The bone blade almost brushed past Lin Feng's neck. Lin Feng could not help sucking in a breath of cold air. That had been truly dangerous. Fortunately, he had the hurricane pearl to block the storm, allowing him to move around unhindered. If he didn't have the hurricane pearl, his movements would have been restricted by the hurricane. If that was the case, it would have been extremely difficult for him to avoid the attacks of the skeletal creatures. Perhaps he would have already been beheaded by the skeletal creatures. The skeletal creatures' movements weren't affected by the hurricane. After the skeletal creature's attack missed, it rushed towards Lin Feng again. Lin Feng brought out the revered sword tomb. The 3 swords flew out. Under the attack of the 3 flying swords, the skeleton creature was unable to withstand them. It was scattered by Lin Feng's flying swords. But what surprised Lin Feng was that the skeleton creature's body began to reform again. The skeleton's mouth opened and closed, making cracking sounds. The ghost fire in its eyes was still violently pulsing. This was an undead creature. Lin Feng frowned. Could it be that these skeletal creatures really couldn't be killed? He looked at the ghost fire in the skeleton's head. It wasn't a simple ghost fire. It was equivalent to the skeletal creature's eyes. Moreover, it contained a powerful energy. The ghost fire's color was deeper. Then the skeletal creature's strength would be even more powerful. Lin Feng suddenly thought that if he swallowed these 2 ghost fires, wouldn't the skeletal creature lose all its vitality? After thinking about this, Lin Feng directly reached out and grabbed the skeletal creature's head. Then he swallowed the 2 ghost fires of the skeletal creature. After the 2 ghost fires were swallowed, the skeletal creature's body that was in the process of reforming suddenly scattered. And this skeletal creature was thoroughly dead. After swallowing the 2 ghost fires of the skeletal creature, Lin Feng felt that his soul power had increased significantly. Obviously, The soul power contained in the ghost fire of the skeletal creature was extremely astonishing. At this time, the hurricane finally blew away. Lin Feng's face revealed an expression of relief. He quickly rushed away. Not long after, Lin Feng saw huge skeletons appear in his line of sight. Many of the skeletons were 300 to 400 meters tall. The bodies of these creatures were too huge. He didn't know what kind of existence they were when they were alive. Lin Feng had never seen so many huge skeletons piled up together. It was like a mountain of bones. It was simply appalling. What happened here in the past? Why were there so many huge skeletons? All of this made Lin Feng feel extremely puzzled and puzzled. Lin Feng shuttled back and forth among these huge skeletons. He hoped to find some useful clues. At the same time, Lin Feng also had a hope. Could he find a treasure bone? After some extremely powerful vicious beasts died, their ordinary bones would decay with the passage of time. However, the treasure bones in their bodies would decay very slowly. If he could find a treasure bone, then he would be able to obtain the powerful innate divine ability of these vicious beasts. This was something that Lin Feng valued. He liked to collect all kinds of powerful divine abilities to cultivate, because this could increase his fighting strength. Every time he cultivated a divine ability, his strength would increase. If he could obtain those powerful divine abilities, it would be a big harvest. When he passed by a huge skeleton, Lin Feng was surprised to find that he actually saw a very special skeletal creature. The reason why that skeletal creature was special was because Lin Feng found that the skeletal creature was also looking at him. The ghost fire in its eyes flickered violently. Then it turned around and left. The ghost fire in the skeletal creature's eyes was relatively dim. He didn't know if it was because it hadn't been a skeletal creature for too long. The aura of that skeletal creature was far from the aura emitted by those skeletal creatures that Lin Feng had seen before. The strength of that skeletal creature wasn't very powerful. However, Lin Feng couldn't forget the scene when it looked at him. Now, the skeletal creature was climbing on top of a huge skeleton. It seemed to be looking for something. It really has its own intelligence. Lin Feng was moved. Before, he was only guessing. Now, Lin Feng was almost certain that this skeletal creature in front of him was completely different from those skeletal creatures that only knew how to kill. This skeletal creature already had its own intelligence. It could think like a human and even cultivate. This was too inconceivable. How can there be such a skeletal creature? Where did it come from? Lin Feng guessed the origin of this skeletal creature, but his heart couldn't calm down. Chapter 1288. The skeletal creature's movements were very slow. However, it kept trying to climb up the huge skeleton. In the end, it came down from the skeleton again. It saw Lin Feng standing there and looking at it. The ghostly flames in the skeletal creature's eyes flickered violently. However, it did not stop. Step by step, it walked towards another huge skeleton. Crack, crack. Its bones made a grinding sound, and the luster on its body was also very dim. It climbed up the second huge skeleton and searched for what it was looking for, but it still found nothing. However, the skeletal creature was not discouraged. After searching through more than a dozen skeletons, it finally found what it was looking for. It was a beast bone that contained energy and was still emitting shocking fluctuations. After finding the beast bone, the skeletal creature was very excited. It climbed down from the skeleton and opened the beast bone. It stretched out its claws and handed the other half of the beast bone to Lin Feng. Lin Feng observed for a moment and found that the beast bone was very ordinary. It was not a treasure bone. Apart from containing a certain amount of energy, there was nothing special about it. However, the skeletal creature treated the beast bone as a treasure. It was absorbing the energy in the beast bone. After devouring the energy in the beast bone in its hand, the skeletal creature signaled Lin Feng to enjoy the energy in the other half. The skeletal creature kept staring at Lin Feng, as if expecting Lin Feng to enjoy the food, like it did. Lin Feng did not disappoint the skeletal creature. After devouring the energy in the beast bone, he immediately found that this energy was different from ordinary energy. This energy seemed to contain a very strange power. That strange power might be the reason why the bone was not destroyed. Seeing Lin Feng devour the energy in the bone, the skeletal creature's eyes flickered violently. It seemed very excited. "What's your name?" Lin Feng asked. The skeletal creature tilted its head and looked straight at Lin Feng. Crack, crack. After a while, it seemed to understand Lin Feng's meaning. It shook its head. "How about you be called King Yama from now on?" Lin Feng asked with a smile. He suddenly thought of the legendary king of the underworld, King Yenluo. After hearing the words King Yenluo, the ghostly fire in the skeleton creature's eyes flickered even more intensely. It was very excited and kept nodding. In the following days, Lin Feng and King Yama headed towards the depths of the Bone Sea realm. As they went deeper, they encountered a few terrifying creatures. They were all formed from skeletons, but they only knew how to kill. Lin Feng beheaded some strange creatures formed from skeletons, while King Yama followed behind Lin Feng, devouring the ghost flames in the eyes of those skeletons. Lin Feng could also obtain benefits from devouring the ghost fire, but he realized that King Yama seemed to desire the ghost fire even more. Therefore, he let King Yenluo devour and refine all the ghost fire. However, King Yenluo had been too weak before, so it hadn't been able to kill other skeletons and devour their ghost fire. But now, with Lin Feng's help, Yamaluo was able to devour a large number of skeletons. The ghost fire in its eye sockets became even more profound. Its bones, which were originally grayish-brown in color, were now turning silver-white. King Yenluo wasn't simple. After devouring a large amount of ghost fire, it was evolving. Lin Feng. 10 days later, King Yenluo sent out a simple wave of energy. It was Lin Feng's name. Lin Feng had told King Yenluo his name when he had communicated with him before. Telepathy? Lin Feng jumped up from the ground and looked at King Yenluo in surprise. "Ha! Let's go and find more skeletons. I'll kill them and let you continue devouring them," said Lin Feng excitedly. During this time, some cultivators passed by the sea of skeletons. When they saw the strange combination of a human and a skeleton, they all retreated in fear. Lin Feng took out a large black robe, a pair of shoes, a black bamboo hat, and a cloak. He had King Yenluo wear them to cover his body. Roar! On this day, a dragon's roar echoed through the sea of skeletons. A terrifying chi filled the air. When King Yenluo heard the dragon's roar, he said telepathically, "Hurry up and play dead." Kacha! King Yenluo's body broke apart and turned into a pile of bones. His head rolled to the side, and the ghost fire in its eye sockets disappeared. The newcomer had to be extremely terrifying. Otherwise, King Yenluo wouldn't have been so scared. Lin Feng hurriedly looked for a place to hide. Not long after, he saw a huge monster. It was a gigantic bone dragon that was 400 to 500 meters long. There were 18 chains tied around its body. A tall and mysterious figure in a black robe was holding the chains. A terrifying chi filled the air. It was as if a bone dragon knight from hell was patrolling the world. It was too terrifying. After the bone dragon knight left, another 8 bone dragon knights flew by one after another. King Yenluo only reassembled his body after all the bone dragons left. Lin Feng also came out from his hiding place. He looked at King Yenluo and asked, "Who are those 9 bone dragon knights?" "The great general army of the great. Underworld, great. Hell, devil, king of the bone. Dragon, army on behalf of the great. Underworld, great. Hell, devil, king, inspects this world. King Yenluo's voice was intermittent. Dark Hell's demon king? The ruler of this world? Lin Feng asked. King Yenluo nodded. It should be this Dark Hell's demon king who swallowed us into this space. Lin Feng frowned. He then asked, where is Dark Hell's demon king? The end of world, King Yenluo said. Lin Feng nodded. He still hadn't found a way to deal with Dark Hell's demon king. He could only wait for the time being. Lin Feng wondered if he should wait until he found Gananji and the others to discuss countermeasures. Lin Feng and King Yenluo continued walking. Now that King Yenluo was wearing clothes to cover himself, Lin Feng didn't have to worry about others looking at him strangely. The next day, Lin Feng and King Yenluo saw a huge skeleton. This skeleton was actually blood red in color. It was as huge as a 1,000-meter tall mountain. They didn't know what kind of skeleton it was. King Yenluo climbed up the skeleton and waved at Lin Feng. Lin Feng flew over. Treasure bone. He was extremely shocked. King Yenluo had actually discovered a treasure bone. After entering the Sea of Bones for so long, this was the first time Lin Feng had seen a treasure bone. The divine runes engraved on it were extremely complicated. Lin Feng glanced at it and felt dazzled. This treasure bone was too extraordinary. Swoosh! Lin Feng had just taken the treasure bone when more than 10 people flew over from the distance. Among these people, there were experts from the Great Qin Empire, as well as Xuemuyang and Qin Dongfang. Obviously, they had also seen Lin Feng and King Yenluo. It's a blood-red treasure bone. Little brat, hurry up and give it to me, said Xuemuyang while looking down at Lin Feng, as if he were talking to his dog. Xuemuyang looked at Lin Feng in a domineering way. Chapter 1289. If Lin Feng could see that the treasure bone was extraordinary, so could Xuemuyang. Qin Dongfang could see the same thing, but he was a more thoughtful person. He wasn't as arrogant as Xuemuyang, so he stood to the side and watched the show. Whoosh, whoosh. Another 2 groups of people flew over. One group was Qian Anji, Duanmujin, and the others. The other group was a group of cultivators who had been devoured along with them. These people had also discovered the Sea of Bones and had gone deep into it. Now, they had met each other in the center. Is Xuemuyang teaching that young cultivator a lesson again? Some people shook their heads. This wasn't the first time they had seen Xuemuyang teach Lin Feng a lesson. Qian Anji had helped Lin Feng before, so Xuemuyang had restrained himself. However, now that Xuemuyang had taken a fancy to Lin Feng's treasure bone, he wouldn't let Lin Feng off so easily unless Lin Feng was willing to hand over the treasure bone. Many people looked at Lin Feng sympathetically. In this world, the strong preyed on the weak. Take Lin Feng, for example. He didn't have any strength, so Xuemuyang had humiliated him and bullied him. He could only accept his bad luck and couldn't refute Xuemuyang unless he wanted to die. I found it. If you want it, you can find it yourself. The treasure bone was extraordinary, and there was probably a terrifying divine ability imprinted on it. Lin Feng naturally wouldn't hand it over to Xuemuyang. This kid is still too young. Giving up his life for a treasure is too stupid. He'll regret it later. Many cultivators shook their heads. In their eyes, Lin Feng was too young. How could he contend with Xuemuyang and the others? It was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Xuemuyang obviously hadn't expected Lin Feng to refuse him. His expression sank, and he looked coldly at Lin Feng. Do you know what you're saying? Lin Feng said, "Of course I know. Don't you understand human language?" Everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone looked at Lin Feng in disbelief. No one would have thought that Lin Feng would dare to speak to Xue Muyang in such a manner. Did he really not want to live anymore? Or did he lose his mind? What is this guy doing? Tai Anji frowned slightly. She also did not understand why Lin Feng's guts were so big. This was also what everyone else was puzzled about. Previously, when facing Xue Muyang, Lin Feng had never shown any intention of resisting. Even when Xue Muyang scolded him to get lost, he endured it. But now it was as if he was a completely different person. Could it be related to the black-robed cultivator beside him? However, when they carefully sensed the black-robed cultivator's strength, they found that the black-robed cultivator was not all that strong. Did he really want to die? Many people had such thoughts. "You're acting recklessly. Teach him a lesson." Xuemyang's voice was cold. "Yes, milord." Immediately, an expert stepped forward, a hegemon of the eternal era. This person's strength was extremely tyrannical. He stepped forward and looked coldly at Lin Feng. He sneered, "You even dare to offend Lord Xue? You're simply acting recklessly." This ancient overlord punched Lin Feng's dantian as fast as lightning. He wanted to directly cripple Lin Feng. How ruthless! He wants to cripple that brat with his first move. That brat is finished. Many people cried out in alarm. In everyone's opinion, Lin Feng was only a young cultivator in his 20s. Naturally, it was impossible for him to block the attack of a high-level ancient overlord. "I didn't attack before not because I was afraid of you, but because I didn't want to attack in the dangerous swamp, because it could very well lead to some terrible things. At that time, everyone could die in the swamp. Since I've been swallowed into this unknown space, I don't have to worry about anything else." Lin Feng's expression was cold. He stepped forward. A terrifying force condensed. In an instant, it pressed down on the body of the high-ranking ancient overlord. Bang! The ancient overlord didn't even have the strength to resist. His body instantly exploded into pieces. How is this possible? Many people cried out in alarm. They couldn't believe it. How strong was this young man to be able to rely on his own force to shatter a high-level ancient overlord, who was at least at the 7th layer of the life and death realm? This young man has always been low-key. I didn't expect him to be so strong. Yeah, I even chatted with him a bit. He seemed amiable and approachable. I didn't expect him to have such terrifying strength. It's really unexpected. He killed a high-level ancient overlord with just his force. He's probably already at the rebirth realm, right? He's already at the rebirth realm in his 20s. There aren't many people like that in the continent of heaven. Which supreme genius is he? Many people cried out in alarm and started discussing spiritedly. This person, he's so strong. Who is he? Anji was also shocked. She hadn't paid much attention to Lin Feng before. Although she felt that Lin Feng was extraordinary, she hadn't thought that Lin Feng would be so strong. Ying Dongfang and Duan Mujin were also shocked. Of course, Xue Muyang was also shocked. "Brat, you dared to kill a member of my Earth Master branch. Do you know that you're courting death?" Xue Muyang's face was extremely gloomy. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "Did you know that I was planning to take your dog life as soon as I left the swamp? But now, it seems that I'll have to bring it forward." Lin Feng stood in the air with his hands clasped behind his back. He coldly looked at Xue Muyang and said, "Kneel down and accept your death." At that moment, Lin Feng's domineering aura was completely exposed. He didn't hide his strength. The qi emitted from his body made many people feel suffocated. This person is too terrifying. Many people cried out in alarm and looked at Lin Feng in astonishment. They had heard of some monstrous supreme geniuses who had incredible battle prowess at such a young age, but they had never seen such a person. Now, they were witnessing it with their own eyes. It was as if a huge wave had been set off in his heart. How incredible was his innate talent! How could he be so strong when he was only in his 20s? Brat, do you think you can talk big in front of me just because you're a little bit strong? Today, I'll let you know that there's always someone better than you. Don't worry, I won't kill you directly because that would be letting you off too easily. I'll break every single bone in your body, pull out your soul, and throw it into a boundless purgatory so that you'll never be able to live again, said Xuemuyang sinisterly. He walked towards Lin Feng, his qi becoming more and more powerful. Suppress him. Xuemuyang was at the rebirth realm. He was extremely strong. He raised his right hand and threw a punch at Lin Feng. He wanted to suppress Lin Feng. Chapter 1290. As expected, Xuemuyang was extremely arrogant. When he attacked, he looked down on Lin Feng and despised him. But Lin Feng didn't hesitate to use his full strength. She looked indifferent. She used the 5 imperial dragon fists and punched Xuemuyang. Lin Feng's back was surrounded by holy light. 5 great emperors and 5 dragons appeared. The great emperor came riding on a huge dragon, pointing at the sky and stomping on the earth. Bang! The two of them collided, and a powerful energy surged out. The surrounding void was torn apart by the tremors. Lin Feng didn't move, but Xuemuyang was blown away by Lin Feng's punch. What? Many people were dumbstruck. Xuemuyang was at a disadvantage against Lin Feng in their first battle. Nobody had thought that it would happen. Xuemuyang, I'm going to kill you today. Nobody will be able to save you. Lin Feng looked indifferent. He stepped forwards and used spatial bending. Lin Feng was extremely fast. When Xuemuyang was blown away by Lin Feng's punch, Lin Feng had already arrived next to Xuemuyang. Close combat. Lin Feng was an expert in close combat. Lin Feng punched Xuemuyang as fast as lightning. Xuemuyang's expression changed slightly. He tried to dodge, but it was easier said than done to dodge Lin Feng's attack. Bang! Lin Feng's punch landed on Xuemuyang's left shoulder. Crack, crack! Xuemuyang's left shoulder caved in. Ah! Xuemuyang couldn't help but scream. Xuemuyang's face was deathly pale. His heart was burning with fury. Xuemuyang had never suffered such a great loss in his life. Lin Feng wasn't the only one who had injured him. The most important thing was that Xuemuyang's body was damaged. Take another punch. Lin Feng arrived next to Xuemuyang again. He used pure physical strength to attack Xuemuyang. Fulgurating shadows. Xuemuyang wasn't simple. He used a powerful technique, fulgurating shadows. He teleported away and dodged Lin Feng's attack. Xuemuyang put some distance between himself and Lin Feng because he realized that when Lin Feng attacked him at close range, he couldn't keep up with Lin Feng's attacks. But if he put some distance between them, Xuemuyang wasn't afraid of Lin Feng at all. Xuemuyang, have never suffered such a great loss before. I'm going to kill you. Xuemuyang roared in anger. He condensed a supreme mystic ability, and a mysterious world appeared in the sky. In that world, there were countless ancient countries that had existed for hundreds of millions of years without declining. Divine territories, divine territory. It was an emperor's technique. In the past, Xuemuyang had a fortuitous encounter. It was said that he had obtained the inheritance of a great emperor. This was not groundless news. It was true. The divine territory was the emperor's divine territory. Xuemuyang walked through it. He was surrounded by boundless godly light. It was as if a god emperor had descended. I represent the glory of the gods. I represent the immortal god Emperor to judge this lowly creature. A beam of godly light shot out from the divine territory. Break. Lin Feng looked indifferent as he punched the beam of godly light. Bang! Lin Feng collided with the beam of godly light. He was blown away. The terrifying godly light penetrated his body, trying to destroy it. That strength was extremely strange. Lin Feng used the 8 godly abstraction seals and sealed the strange strength inside his body. That's an emperor's technique. A great emperor's inheritance is extraordinary. Before, Lin Qing had the upper hand and suppressed Xue Muyang, but now Xue Muyang knows an emperor's technique. He's in trouble. Emperor's techniques are peerless. Only top-tier great Tao cultivators or emperor's techniques of the same level can resist them. But regardless of whether they're top-tier great Tao cultivators or emperor's techniques of the same level, they're extremely rare. Does that mean Lin Qing is dead for sure? Many cultivators whispered to each other. Xue Muyang's emperor's technique was too powerful. The spectators didn't even dare get close. They were afraid that the shock waves would kill them. Even Gan and Ji and the others frowned and looked at Xue Muyang seriously. I know an emperor's technique. How can you fight against me? Xue Muyang looked down at Lin Feng. His voice was cold and filled with murderous intent. Beams of godly light shot out from the divine territory. It was as if they could destroy the sky. Lin Feng looked indifferent. He stepped forward in the sky. Xue Muyang, I said I'd kill you today, so I'll definitely cut off your head. Many people were moved. Lin Feng was too domineering. He was facing Xue Muyang, who had used an emperor's technique, and he was still threatening to kill him. Did he really have the strength to do so? The 3 forces overlapped. Lin Feng walked towards the divine territory of the other countries. When the godly light shot out from the divine territory of the other countries, it was all dispersed by the 3 forces. One region, crushing the ancient world. Xue Muyang sneered. The divine territory of the other countries descended from the sky and pressed down on Lin Feng. A terrifying aura filled the air and enveloped Lin Feng. In an instant, Lin Feng found it difficult to move. That brat has been sealed. Is this the end of the battle? Many people cried out in alarm when they saw this. Xue Muyang also sneered. He urged the divine territory of the other countries to kill Lin Feng. Emperor technique, seal of life and death. At that moment, Lin Feng's left hand formed the Tao of life, while his right hand formed the Tao of death. Life and death, 2 different Tao characters condensed into a magical seal. This was the seal of life and death. Lin Feng used the power of life and death. Bang! The seal of life and death collided with the divine territory of the other countries. Splat! The divine territory of the other countries was instantly torn apart by the seal of life and death. Then Lin Feng quickly charged into the divine territory of the other countries. Great suppression technique. 8 seals of the soul. 2 top-tier divine abilities were used. One was used to suppress, and the other was used to seal. Runes swirled around them. My magic power. You want to suppress me? Don't even think about it. Xue Muyang's expression suddenly changed, and he bellowed. Earth Master Seal Breaking Technique. Xue Muyang used an ultimate technique that was similar to the formation breaking technique of the Heavenly Masters, but its power was naturally much weaker. The runes on his body shattered one by one, but it would take time to completely destroy them. The formation breaking technique of the Heavenly Masters could instantly destroy all the runes. Xue Muyang, it's useless. It's all over. I'll take your head. Lin Feng stepped forward and grabbed Xue Muyang's head. Splat! Xue Muyang's head was ripped off by Lin Feng, and blood spurted out. Shue Muyang's headless corpse quickly fell to the ground. Heavens! Shue Muyang was beheaded. Cries of alarm rose and fell one after another. Many people turned pale with fright as they looked at Lin Feng, who was holding Shue Muyang's head in midair. Shue Muyang was an expert at the second heavenly layer of the rebirth realm. He had even used an emperor technique, but Lin Feng had still easily killed him. Everyone was shocked as they thought about it. Just how terrifying was that young cultivator's strength? Chapter 1291. The surroundings were deathly silent. No one said a word, as they were all shocked, speechless. None of them had expected Lin Feng to be so powerful and terrifying. Even now, they still hadn't recovered from their shock. Soul search. Lin Feng wanted to search Shue Muyang's soul to see if he could obtain the powerful divine abilities that Shue Muyang had cultivated. However, Shue Muyang's soul had a restriction. When it sensed that Lin Feng wanted to soul search Shue Muyang, the restriction instantly destroyed Shue Muyang's soul. What a pity! Lin Feng shook his head. He tossed Shue Muyang's head to the ground and took Shue Muyang's storage ring. Shue Muyang definitely had many treasures on him. Now, all of those treasures belonged to Lin Feng. You actually killed Master Shue Muyang. You know who he is? The faces of the members of the Geomaster branch were deathly pale. They were looking at Lin Feng with hatred. Shue Muyang had been killed, and as his guards, they would be implicated. Even if they managed to leave this place alive, if their superiors blamed them, they would definitely be punished severely. Lin Feng asked calmly, "I'd like to know what Shue Muyang's identity is." Lord Shue Muyang is a descendant of old ancestor Shue Junhan, said a Geomaster. Shue Junhan, one of the 3 Yin-Yang elders? Lin Feng was astonished. Boy, you know about the 3 Yin-Yang elders. Do you know that you've caused a great disaster? The cultivator from the Geomaster branch said fiercely. Lin Feng pursed his lips and said, "It's not like I haven't seen the 3 Yin-Yang elders before. Those 3 old things are trapped in a terrifying place. They might have already been eaten by a swarm of God-eater bugs. You're still using the 3 Yin-Yang elders to threaten me? You're really stupid." The expressions of the cultivators from the Geomaster branch changed slightly. "Let's go," one of them said. He didn't want to stay here any longer. "Go. Did I say you could go?" Lin Feng sneered. These people's expressions changed drastically. One of them said, "Are you going to kill us too? Just now it was just a fight between you and Lord Shue Muyang. We didn't participate. The Martial Heaven continent's life and death battles don't involve others. You should know that." Lin Feng said faintly, "So what if I know? Me killing you has nothing to do with Shue Muyang. I'm killing you because you are Geomasters." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng had already rushed towards these people. Divine finger. Lin Feng raised his right hand and tapped the air. Golden energy condensed into a finger. Puff, puff. One cultivator after another was killed by Lin Feng. At present, not even the life and death realm giants could fight back against Lin Feng. "Why? We have no enmity with you," the last expert from the Geomaster branch shouted. "It's nothing. I just don't like the Geomaster branch. If I see anyone from the Geomaster branch, I'll kill them." Lin Feng's right hand tapped the person's head. Puff! His head was pierced through, and his corpse fell down. Rumble! At that moment, the sky shook and the earth shook. What's going on? Everyone was shocked and looked around. "Look, over there. Oh my God!" Someone pointed into the distance. The sky was filled with soul catchers and all kinds of fierce birds. On the ground, there were countless fierce beasts, zombies, skeletons, and other terrifying creatures. Roar! The roar shook the sky. Among the sea of bones, skeletons as huge as mountains rose to their feet. Those skeletons had clearly lost their lives before. Now, they had all turned into skeletons. What's going on? Seeing this scene, many people felt their scalps go numb. They were afraid that the skeletons in the sea of skeletons would attack them. However, the skeletons didn't attack them. Roar. A high-pitched dragon roar resounded through the sky. 9 bone dragon knights rode their bone dragons and patrolled the sky. Blood moon. Look, at the end of the world, a blood-red moon has risen. A cultivator pointed into the depths. Everyone looked over and saw a blood-red moon slowly rising into the sky. Finally, it stopped in the void. Now, the strange changes in the mysterious space, was it related to the blood-red moon? Lin Feng looked at King Yanluo and asked, "What happened?" "Once every 1,000 years, the blood moon appears, and the dead are resurrected to fight for freedom." King Yanluo took off his bamboo hat. He had actually grown flesh and blood. It was a pale face, and now his eyes were looking into the depths. "Quick, look, those skeletons are growing flesh and blood." The surrounding cultivators also cried out in alarm, pointing at the densely packed skeletal creatures in the sea of bones. All the skeletons had grown flesh and blood. Tyrannosaurus rex, sky lizard, great desolate crocodile, and so on and so forth. There were endless vicious beasts, all kinds of vicious beasts. In the sky was an army of soul catchers and birds. On the ground was an army of vicious beasts and undead. The bone dragons under the 9 bone dragon knights had now turned into huge black dragons. Lord Black-robed Dragon Knight, countless creatures roared. "Once every 1,000 years, we must rise up and resist. We must not be enslaved again. If we still fail, we are destined to be enslaved again. Follow us to the end of the world." A dragon knight waved the battle sword in his hand and roared, "Kill our way to the depths of the world." Countless creatures roared loudly, "Quick, let's go and see what's going on." Many cultivators shouted as they followed the army and charged into the depths. "King Yanluo, what's going on?" Lin Feng was puzzled. The undead were resurrecting and fighting for their freedom. It was too strange. The living beings here are all cursed living beings. In the depths of this world resides the emissary of hell. He has enslaved everyone here, and after they die, their souls will never be able to reincarnate. Once every 1,000 years, the emissary of hell will give the cursed living beings a chance. If they can defeat him, they will be able to redeem their souls and regain their freedom. Lin Feng was shocked. Obviously, the emissary of hell that King Yanluo was talking about was the demon king of the Great Ming prison. "Why are they cursed?" Lin Feng asked. "I don't know. I only remember that they will be cursed for eternity. Even though they know that resistance is useless, the creatures here will still resist again and again. Even if there is a glimmer of hope, they will not give up." King Yanluo said, "They had waited for 1,000 years for this battle. These cursed creatures were filled with the will to fight against fate." Lin Feng and King Yanluo also charged into the depths of the world with the army. He also wanted to participate in this battle. The cycle of reincarnation happened once every 1,000 years, and all living beings in this space would die a tragic death. In other words, if they couldn't defeat the demon king of the Great Ming prison, Lin Feng would also die here and become an undead. He would never be able to escape the control of the demon king of the Great Ming prison. He would be tortured for all eternity.